I worked for 10 years in the big concert industry in Oslo for everything from Tina Turner and Boyzone to all the rappers and all that shit. And I guarantee you, the metal concerts are the gigs with the least trouble.
Yeah.
Even though people are fucking drunk out of their head, they go to the gig and they leave. That doesn't happen when fucking 50 Cent is showing up. I can guarantee you. And when Christina Aguilera is playing, you have to carry 300 fucking kids out who's almost passed out and dying, and there's men touching and groping, and I fuck that shit. There's compared to all the other scenes, and especially the hip hop scene and stuff where people actually shoot each other and all that stuff, black metal is not racist. It hasn't got anything with that. When we come together and listen to the music, all that shit goes out the door mostly. If it's a good band, who fucking cares? You listen, you enjoy.
Greetings, Legion, and welcome to a very special episode of Into the Necrosphere, episode 231, in case you're counting. And the reason that I am so excited about this installment of the show is because for the first time in the history of any podcast, I am getting to talk to 3 of the members of the definitive lineup of the legendary Norwegian black metal band Gehenna. Those members are Dolgar, Sarcana, and of course my good friend Svartalv, with the imminent reissue of their first 2 records, the first Spell EP and then the second Spell full-length. We did a deep dive into those. We also spoke at length about the early days of the band, how everyone met, and much, much more. It is a super entertaining and very interesting conversation indeed, coming your way very shortly. But since we're on the topic of world firsts, a couple of weeks ago, I played a band out of Denmark called Perdition's Mire. The EP that I featured on my independent band Spotlight was one called The Doctrine of Losing Life. Many of the Legion really enjoyed that, and the great news is, amidst all this excitement, they were hard at work on putting together its sequel. That is now ready for deployment. They're going to be releasing it in August, and they have chosen Into the Necrosphere as the platform to host the debut of the first single to be released off of that EP. The EP is called Into the Dark Heartland, and the song is Pale Light and Settling Dust.
Republic to change.
That was the world debut of the song Pale Light and Settling Dust. It is taken off the forthcoming EP Into a Dark Heartland by Perdition's Mire out of Denmark. I think it is completely and utterly criminal that this band haven't been signed yet. I know there are record labels that listen to the show, so I don't know what you're waiting for, guys, but this is absolute gold as far as I'm concerned. If the industry were to continue shunning them, though, then I know the Legion will embrace them. So head over to their Bandcamp, buy yourself some music, and let them know who it is that sent you. If you are new to the podcast, my friends, and you've not already done so, all I ask is that you take the closest folding chair and beat the subscribe button on your platform of choice until it begs you for mercy. Head over to the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store, buy yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie, and of course follow me on the socials. I am also very importantly a member of a elite unit of content creators united in the war against mediocrity. We fill your week from Monday to Sunday with absolutely essential listening, starting with Horrible 666, a podcast hosted by Brandon Legion. Every Tuesday, yours truly is on deck to cast hexes and slave poses. My guest next week is going to be the somewhat notorious Spellgoth of the band Horna, as well as the band Night Shall Drape Us, amongst several others. Now, I know that he brings with him some degree of infamy. I think that, any bluehead simpleton sitting by their phone or, watching YouTube with a little notepad and logged in on their Reddit account, ready to find whatever they can cancel us for, I think is going to be surprised. This is actually, for me personally, one of the most surprising conversations I've had in maybe 230 plus episodes of doing this podcast. But you are definitely not going to want to miss that. And you're not going to want to miss all of the other episodes I've got coming up over the course of the next couple of weeks. More on that maybe later. But first we get to a Wednesday where Sensei Mike Hill brings you another episode of Everything Went Black, only to return on a Thursday with the podcast that, as a rule, I will never, ever miss. No matter how crazy work gets, no matter how busy I get, the one podcast that I will listen to from end to end, no matter what, is Necromaniacs. And as I said, that's hosted by Sensei Mike Hill, along with Sheriff Mike Scondado and Professor Jeff Kashid as his co-hosts. Also on a Thursday, and again on a Sunday, the sinister minister, Carl Hikara, stares into the abyss and tells you what he sees, with a curated journey through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric, with his podcast Soul Knox. And then finally, our Middle Eastern brother Cheyenne, leader of the band Trivax, is also host of the excellent podcast Iblis Manifestations, and you can catch him mostly on a Wednesday, but more or less when he feels like doing it. when he does do it, it is always excellent value. When I am done talking to Gehenna, don't go anywhere, because if you truly are a member of the Legion, you know that the only way to climb the ranks is to make sure that you are there for the full duration of my weekly news rant. And this week we're listening to new tracks by Trelldom, Zeal and Ardor. I'm trying to think who else I've seen waiting to be rounded up for judgment. I'm sure there's a fuckload, but for anybody that doesn't listen to the news rant, this is where I jump on metalstorm.net. Usually that's where we start. We go through maybe Metal Injection. You know, we'll pay a visit to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music, Blabbermouth. We listen to some new music. We chew the fat over some of the latest metal news headlines, and generally we have us a grand old time. Before we get to that, though, I am very pleased to welcome to Into the Necrosphere for an episode that, like I said, I am so excited about being able to share with you finally. Dolgar, Sarcana and Svartalv of Gehenna. And we are here for a very, very special occasion, which I don't actually think this has really even been announced very widely by the point that we'll be dropping this episode. So, Dolgar, do you wanna set the stage and tell us why we've convened and you know what specific exciting Gehenna related I would say event or release is going to be, or releases will be happening over the course of the next couple of months?
Yeah, well, strangely enough, there's been quite a few years passed since we recorded the first two Gehenna albums, first spell and second spell. So, well, it's a good opportunity to discuss these now that we've, or close to at least passing the 30-year mark, which is quite insane to think about.
And am I correct, and I can edit this out later if I have to, but am I correct in saying these are being remastered or re-released?
Yes, and you don't need to edit that out. We're working on it. We don't have a date to set to tell anyone right now. They will most likely be this year, but we all know how things can get delayed. But yeah, they will most likely happen this year. So not as kind of anniversary editions type of thing, but just because we now have the opportunity to do them. So yeah.
What kind of prompted the idea to revisit, or you know, to bring up? I would say to dust off those records and, you know, bring them back out again, because like I was saying to you before we started, it was amazing to me. I'd only shared with a very small number of people that I was going to be speaking to, you know, 3 of the original members of Gehenna. What was interesting to me was how many folks would respond by saying how big of an influence those 2 albums in particular had on them. So the first spell EP, which we'll discuss, and then the second spell, you know, there was an awful lot of love from, you know, unanimously from every single person that I mentioned it to. And even people that I was quite surprised about, you know, people that are pretty dyed in the wool, you know, brutal death metal and, you know, brutal black metal only, seem to have a genuine affinity for those 2 records.
Yeah, well, the thing it started off with really was that we got an offer to do a re-release of Second Spell, because both Second Spell and Malice, they have been a bit hard to get hold of for quite a few years, especially Malice actually. But so I'm going to keep the label in question secret just for now. I think most people will think
the label that's going to re-release them.
Yeah, the label that's going to re-release them. I think many will have figured that out by now because they have kind of teased it. But so they asked us first if we could, you know, help them get a license to do them. And so a bit back and forth, and they ended up being one of those few that actually got through to Cacophonous and managed to, you know, get hold of the albums. And so when they did that, we thought that, well, why don't we just put First Spell in the same re-release run as well, because those 3 albums kind of belong together in a way. And we are in the position that Gehenna, we actually own the rights to First Spell ourselves. So that's that was a no-brainer really to do all three while we're at it. So
while you're going, and the first spell was put out on Head Not Found originally, correct?
Yes, yeah. It was. It was originally planned to be like a split release with Ulva.
Yeah.
Which I don't remember anymore how far we were into the process of doing the album when we finally decided that it was going to be two separate releases. But the original idea was to do it as a split with Ulva, which is also why it's only an EP or mini album and not a full length.
So, Sarcana,
Sorry, are we already started? Because I need to fix my sound.
You can fix your sound. We'll just edit this. We'll just edit this bit out.
Yeah, cool. Because the sound here is terrible, and my earplugs didn't work. So sorry, I'm just gonna turn off the screen.
No, that's absolutely fine. If you can hear me, by the way, I did say to Stefan, if there is anything that you want me to avoid talking about, just let me know so that I don't accidentally, derail the conversation whilst we're speaking.
Like, what could that be?
Up to you. So, I very rarely have people say, don't talk about this, don't talk about this. I had David Vincent from Ultimas and Morbid Angel on the other day. He actually interestingly said, I don't want to talk about Morbid Angel, which I thought was fine. I thought to myself, well, he's probably been asked to death about Morbid Angel. So I've had a lot of people will say when I want to talk about politics, which is fine too. So it's my philosophy with this podcast has always been everyone has something they want to talk about. I just need to figure out what that is, and then once we hit that vein of conversation, then we're off and running. When I had Gal on the podcast, it was like a fucking boxing match. I'm bobbing and weaving around what we're doing, and then all of a sudden we're sort of talking about wine, and they just opened up the whole conversation. So as I said, the philosophy is very simple. You have something you want to talk about, so let's find that and let's mine that. But I do want to. I have always been curious to talk about to find out more about how you met up with these ruffians, so with Dolgar and with Svartalv, because you were a bit, I think nowadays people will think nothing of it because there's so many women in black metal, there's so many women in metal, period. But in those days, you were quite an anomaly, like a real, you were a real trailblazer. And what was cool was you were also incredibly visible within the band as well. It wasn't like, you were sort of kept as a, I'm trying to find the right word for it. A figurehead is what I'm thinking, but that's not quite right either. You were very much like, front and center, member of Gehenna. Like there was no sort of question about your role in the band, if you understand what I mean. But how did you first meet with these guys?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say I always felt like a part of equal to the guys. I didn't feel like I was special in that way. But I met, and you're right. It's like I came from another world. I got to know them through a friend, or know of the band through a friend at the school, who was talking about this band, and we were like discussing an article actually in the local newspaper about these guys who were obviously doing something in a cave, and they were maybe like offering children to Satan, and there was all this kind of it was really in a way.
At which point Dolgar said absolutely 100% accurate.
Yes.
It was fascinating in a way, and I think I had something in me that was a bit tired of how the society was, so it was kind of interesting to hear about. And then I don't know, when I heard them the first time at Zoom, the place where they played their first concert. I was just about the music. It was like it spoke to me, and I felt like, yeah, I could hear something I could contribute with. And I haven't, it was just, a coincidence, I think. I was just following my gut feelings. I didn't think so much about it. I wasn't pondering on it. It was just like, I felt like I had something I could contribute with here. And so because I knew the brother of Sanna, then I asked him if he would talk to his brother and ask, are these guys interested in someone playing keyboards? And 2 days later, I was at an audition and met those guys for the first time. And they were really open, and what can I say? The rest is history.
So whenabouts was this? 1993, 94?
I know I was 17. When was that?
Yeah, 93.
I'm going to betray your age if I try and take a guess. I know how old you are, but I'm too much of a gentleman to say that out loud. So, so at this point, were you already a fan of black metal? Like, were you interested in other bands that were coming out in the scenes? Whether that be Burzum, Mayhem, Satyricon, were those bands of any interest to you?
I hadn't heard much black metal at the time. I was borrowing actually some CDs from a friend. Actually Stefan's wife. I borrowed some CDs. She like talked about some. She knew a little bit more, so she was kind of educating me in this kind of music. And then joining the band, we listened to stuff. So I got to all the black metal stuff. I got to listen through when we were hanging out. And there was a cassette tape I often listened to. I think I had a demo with, or something with Emperor, which I listened a lot to. So I didn't listen much to it by myself. Well, the music I was listening to was more like what I now know as post-punk. I was always listening to alternative music, so I felt really outside of my normal friends. They were like more to pop and stuff like that. So I was always an outsider. And in everywhere I go, I'm an outsider. Even I think in Gehenna, because they were so metal, and I'm kind of like, I don't have any genres. I feel like I like all kinds of music. So
when you say post-punk, what sort of bands were you into?
I was really fan of Joy Division at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember I listened to it on repeat. It was it's very depressing music. And a Norwegian band. I don't know if you know it. HORSEMEN. They had really heavy riffs and kind of metal-ish. I listened to like The Doors for inspiration. I listened to actually also a little bit to Deep Purple. It was more for the inspirational part, because I started playing keyboards in a girl band before I came to Gehenna, and I was sort of listening to those bands to see how rock and keyboards could go together, and
Well, that was also an interesting change, and Dolgar, you'll definitely have a view on this, especially if I look at your, you've got a very impressive record and CD collection behind you. But I mean, you'll know I remember in the mid '80s, there was a really vehement push against using any sort of keyboards, any sort of synth in metal music whatsoever. And I think black metal really changed that, or really kind of turned that upside down. I mean, there was no question about it, especially when, bands like you and bands like Emperor and, bands like Dimmu Borgir started doing, what they were doing. It became very prominent. But Dolgar, give me describe your first meeting with Sarcana for me. Like, how did that, from your perspective, what happened? How did you meet? And then what was the X factor, or what was it that created that spark? Like, you knew you guys could work together?
Well, first off, of course, we had already done the Black Seared Heart demo, which had keyboards on it, so our music was always going to be with keyboards from the beginning. So we knew that we needed someone to play keyboards if we were to have a complete lineup, and if we wanted to play the songs live as close to the recording versions that we could. So we wanted to get a keyboard player. We also, from the beginning, were open to having a female member in the band. Although, we didn't want it to be the cliche type of female band member where she did, clean vocals like a lot of goth bands, etc. did.
Yeah.
The same time period. But we had actually advertised for someone to play keyboards, not getting any response from anyone that we felt we could use. So we were going to do the concert that Sarcana already mentioned, our first one, and we just figured, okay, well, we don't have anyone to play keyboard, we're just going to do it without. And fortunately enough, she was in the crowd. So to some extent, you can say that we were searching for her already before she heard us at that concert. And when she came to the audition, she hooked up her instrument and started playing. And I don't remember her hesitating a second, got into it straight away. I don't remember what songs we played. I don't remember who showed her what to play on any of the songs. I just remember that it worked from, from the first second, really. So there was no hesitation. We just wanted to, musically it clicked right away. So I think we just wanted to make sure that she knew what she was getting into, if you know what I mean, because as she already told you, she came from a bit different background, which might also be why she hadn't seen our advertisement that we wanted someone to play keyboards, because that advertisement was pretty much, piece of paper with some writing on it on the local record store. So, it just worked. I'm very happy that we never had to look for anyone else when first she came in and tried out, and no questions, she played wonderfully good. Took the atmosphere straight away. We were kind of awestruck when we heard how well she played. She was, as a musician, as an instrumentalist, she was better than the rest of us.
Did she have did she have complete freedom over how she wrote the synth lines? Like, was she able to write it? Like, if you guys played her the song, would she be able to, for example, layer a synth line over the song based on what she or how she interpreted the music that you were presenting her with, or were you guys a bit more prescriptive?
And Sarcana, you should correct me after if you remember it differently than I do. But no, I mean, the songs that we'd already written before she came into the band were, of course, pretty set. And that also includes, some of the keyboard lines, I guess, for the first Spell album were a bit thought out beforehand. Svartalv actually had his father help out with some of the stuff for the keyboard intro. I think for Shivering Voice at least. So I think she had pretty much freedom to do her own input on everything we wrote or finished writing from the very first day that she came aboard. And I hope that she felt that we were confident in her from the very, very first day. So I think only the songs that we had already done, like done, were things that she could not really change, because we're kind of strict about if the song is recorded in a certain way, then it should be also performed live to sound as close to the recorded version as possible. So, Sarcana, did you feel it any other way?
Yeah, well, we can discuss who made the intro for Shivering Voice. I remember like getting the description of how it should be, kind of, and that I just tried to make what Morten or someone wanted from me, and what he described he and his father had come with. Because I just remember I was working a lot on the piano, my mother's piano, and figuring out this intro, how I could make it work, so it was similar to what they described, you know. So you can discuss that, and but yeah, there were a lot of things. Well, there were some things that were fixed, but I felt like I could freely like put stuff on it. And I listened to like Second Spell here yesterday, and I remember there was actually a song where Taya, our producer, he was like, okay, you have made too much, you have to cut something out. So he was kind of more asking me to take stuff out because of the whole production things. But I didn't feel limited at all, and I felt like yeah, there's like some stuff like A Witch is Born where I really feel like that was made. I didn't do much on that song, but there are other songs where there is a mix. Like maybe there is someone have made a little riff, and then I put some stuff on other riffs, and yeah, so it's a mix of it, I think.
By the way, we've just been joined by the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, Svartalv Destroyer. How's it going, brother?
Hi, man. Hi, guys. Sorry for that. I was just dicking around trying to figure out what to do for the next hour before I kind of joined you guys. So I double checked.
I did think
everything.
That, yeah, no, I thought there may have been a miscommunication, and again, apologies, folks, from my side.
No, it's no problem. It said 21 hours.
Night that happened. So,
yeah.
So Sarcana, one thing I was curious about, by the time that you joined Gehenna, I mean, you mentioned you'd been playing in another band, but did you have any musical training prior to joining the band? And I asked that for two reasons. One, based on what you said, this is why I was curious to know how much input you had into the keyboard lines. Like there's a demonstrable feel for music on first and second spell that's really a cut above what a lot of bands were doing at the time, and actually, frankly, what a lot of bands do to this day. I mean, and I say that also with the perspective of my mom was a music teacher, so I can listen to something and go like, there's a deeper understanding of music going on here than just simply somebody going, well, these three notes will sound cool on a keyboard if I play them over a riff. So your background, like your discovery, or your musical training pre-Gehenna, what was that?
Yeah, well, I started playing classical piano when I was 4. Yeah, I lived in England at that time. So
where in England did you live?
Outside London, a couple of hours. How small? I don't know. Yeah. But it was like sort of the culture, to send small girls to classical piano training and ballet. So
yeah.
that was what I
So that's
started.
another thing that you did. And you at the ballet is where you met Svartalv, I would assume.
Yes.
That inspired me. But you can see, like I really, when I became a teenager, I really had to rebel against the conformity, the classical, the really nice, culture, and do something opposite.
I was about to say, you couldn't have picked anything more opposite than getting into a black metal band. Svartalv, I was talking to Dolgar and Sarcana about just what it was like meeting, but when you met these two, I know it would have been on separate occasions, but tell me a bit about how. First, let's talk about you and Dolgar first of all. When did you guys meet, and at what point did you guys start working together musically and start working together in service of the band Gehenna?
I met him late summer 1993 through a friend called Eric Borgen. And I had already, I think, about a month or two, I've had the Gehenna demos, or the demo, and I was just really, I don't know, blown away by that music. And this guy Eric kind of, mentioned to me that, yeah, he knew the guys in the bands and stuff. And I think, I don't remember the exact day I met Svartalv and Dolgar was on the same day, but I think I basically started working for the project from the day after or something like that. Things just mashed really well. It was kind of an instant feeling that we got, and I don't remember just hanging out not thinking about Gehenna. So it was just like bam boom. Can you fix a bass guitar? Yes, I can. Okay, let's fucking go. So it was just an instant thing, and the music and stuff was so different from any other bands around. I still dare people to find something that sounds like Gehenna. You're gonna you have to search for a while to figure it. And it was like just a new door kind of opening, their creative minds and my creative minds, and we were young and eager, and I don't know, it was just a really cool. Everyone has met people that you really kind of click with and that you will have with you your entire life, and it was that kind of feeling, And Sarcana came, of course, a year later, kind of drifting in from the side since she lived in the town, and I just remember being with her too, just blown away by the talent, and like she talked about now, she's the only one out of us that is actually a bit educated on the instruments, compared to us. At least back then, we were just doing things. I couldn't probably name you all the 6 strings even, so getting her into the band just added that thing that none of us could put on it at all. So the whole thing, 93, 94, is just a magical little era where the creativity was so thick you could basically touch it in a way. It was palpable to the touch, as you say.
I mean, we were talking about this before I hit record, actually, Dolgar and I, and one of the things that he highlighted that I thought was very interesting is I think part of the reason that you sounded so different is because you were geographically removed from the scene in Oslo, and you also weren't recording at the same places that everybody else was recording at. Hence, your sound was way different. And I mean, from your perspective, did you kind of escape a little bit of that mayhem Burzum influence that hit so many other bands in the scene at the time because you were not in the same city and not necessarily constantly surrounded by those guys?
Yeah, I think that's right. Of course, we listened to it. That style of black metal was all around us, but for some reason, these kind of West Coast guys, even though they're only like 2 hours from Bergen and stuff like that, it doesn't sound anything like it. And it was, as you say, it was a little bit of escape, a new door. I had no idea you could kind of make black metal, or we didn't actually think about it as black metal. We were really focused on dark metal and doing that kind of stuff. But I didn't really know that anyone could make it like that. The combination, the darker voices, the melodies, but still really occult and dark, and I think it was kind of needed a bit too, because even back then some of the bands started to kind of sound a little bit the same, because everyone kind of started out in the same kind of cauldron kind of thing. So, but there's something about that region. If you listen to the old Carpathian Forest stuff too, it kind of stands out as its own thing. So and as you said, the studio, Sound Suite is really, really important in development of that sound, because none of us had fuck all clue about what to do at all. And this guy Terje came in just like Pitten did, and just didn't tell anyone what to do or how to sound, but he just put the right equipment and the right microphones on our shitty equipment and let us use our shitty equipment that we were very used to. So I think there's a mixture there, and the remoteness, and well, fuck, all of us in Gehenna was really antisocial too. We didn't have too much contact with anyone outside the band. A little bit here and there, but mostly we just developed our own thing.
Dolgar, how did when you guys were playing live, how were you received by the scene? Because that's something that I Svartalv was kind of touched on it there. You were all very unique characters. You had a very unique sound relative to what was coming out at the time. How did people in the scene receive you? Like, if you played a show, how many people would typically turn up, and were you accepted by other bands in the scene? Was there any kind of rivalry there? What was kind of the general mood, the general atmosphere like, whenever you guys were out doing something? By the way, before we check out this. What's the name that so Paige got this for me for my birthday, my wine decanter. I can't think of anything more fitting for this. my gold wine glass here. Svartalv has met Paige, so he knows what she's like.
Yeah. That's a good gift.
Yeah, that's a fucking brilliant gift. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, our first gig was very well received, and what brought that along is that there was a lot of local media attention. Before that, local government church tried to ban us and stop the concert, which was, of course, the best PR anyone could get for a black metal gig. So the place, which is the concert.
And sorry to interrupt, but when you say they wanted to ban the concert, was that kind of guilt by association, or was that just a case? Because you've got a wild man Svartalv in the band. Like, what was their reasoning for it?
No, it was guilt by association, as you say, because of all the media attention that the entire scene was getting in those first half of the 90s. So they tried to ban it, because of that. Stuff had also, of course, happened locally, without getting too much into that. But so there was a lot of media attention. They tried to ban the gig. That was, of course, every teenager's dream. Oh, we're going to see this show because they're trying to ban it, so it must be something great. So the place was packed. So our very first experience as a band playing on stage was not what you hear a lot of bands saying, where they play for two guys and the sound engineer, but it was actually super packed. And then, well received. Second show was in Oslo with
Gorgoroth.
Yeah, Gorgoroth was the same day. Yeah, that was also well received. I mean, we met a lot of other guys from the scene for the first time face to face that night, and I think everything pretty much went smoothly. And then third show, I think, was in Germany, and we didn't do that many shows back then. So is that correct? The third show was Germany, right?
The festival in Germany, eastern part of Germany.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was a kind of a short and sweet ladder to climb going from a first show ever being packed, second show being, quite a big thing with big names, names from bands that are still pretty much around. A 3-day festival. We only saw that day where we played ourselves, of course, and then off to Germany for an outdoor festival. So, which was also very well received. So yeah, it was great. It felt like there was kind of a very almost too easy. I think you could say everything went pretty smooth. Yeah.
How can you remember how many people were at that first show?
I don't remember the capacity of the venue, actually. Do any of you other guys know?
I think around 50. It was a small dance floor.
Yeah. It was a small club, but
I think it was about 200, and that was like the fire limit.
I think 50 sounds like not even close, but I don't know.
I have no idea. I just remember there was people outside, people on the street, people everywhere, and the house was packed. And that second gig too, we called it a festival, but it was in a little pub, and then I mean a little pub, and it was Dissection, Gorgoroth, Gehenna, Marduk, Dark Funeral, all the bands. Satyricon was supposed to play, but they pulled out. Ulver was supposed to play, but they pulled out. And being like early in 1994, that was like kind of epic thing. All these bands had their like 1994 release out, and it's the feeling there was. But I don't think that place packed more than 50, 60 people.
No, the place in Oslo, that was a small place. Yeah, much smaller than Zonen.
Yeah. More smaller, but still the atmosphere, the people in the audience were the people that all you people out there are listening to now. That was the people in the audience, and you just kind of flipped. Okay, Gorgoroth plays, and then they go down into the audience, and then we go up on stage, and I watch Infernus while I play on stage, kind of thing. That's pretty cool. That's a lot of emotions and energies and things going about, and there was still all the talk about the Swedish war thing. Would the Abruptum guys show up? Infernus has a big axe on him. This was very dramatic.
You guys knew you were covered because Sarcana could handle the guys from anyone from Sweden. Really. So Sarcana, how were you experiencing all of this? Because like just reading between the lines of what you said earlier, you come. I would assume, if you're doing, ballet and the piano and stuff like that, you come from a reasonably conservative family. Like, how were you, like, when you were seeing all of these, future legends and present psychopaths in the audience and, like, experiencing it, and again, I'll give you the context. My fiance doesn't listen to metal at all, nothing. Has never, before she met me, she had barely listened to an AC/DC song. So sometimes, when I was at Inferno this year, for example, I'll be standing in the audience and I'll watch a band like Norgevel. I'll watch, even Ultimas or Dimmu Borgir, and I'll go, Jesus Christ, what would she be thinking? Because I thought to myself, like, when I was into heavy stuff, I was into Metallica, Pantera, and I remember I would page through Metal Maniacs, and I'd see Immortal, I would see Emperor, I would see Samael, and I'd go, fuck, these people are, I can't believe most of them are in prison. They look like the most, horrific, terrifying people on the face of the earth. I know you were already like you were interested in the music, which is why you were in the band. But like, what was your experience of being on stage the first time with a band? Like, seeing the audience, feeling that energy coming back from them for the music that you guys were performing.
I think, our first concert in Oslo, that was a bit like surreal, I think. Well, they were, all the experiences were a little bit surreal. I remember this woman, she was from Sweden, actually, she was telling me how she as a birthday present got a church burning as a gift.
That was Ilsa.
Was that?
Yeah, that was Grishnak's girlfriend.
Okay, I thought that was a bit like too much.
I think that's fucking lazy. It's like, hey, listen, I'm not going to buy you a gift this year. I'm just going to go vandalize some things.
Yeah, but I think also I got some nice friends. Like I also became really good friends with a guy from Mysticum, who we went on tour with afterwards. But like, I mean, I met friends also. So maybe there were some weird guys. I don't know. But I think also like, yeah, you connect with some people. Some people you don't connect, and yeah, I can say a lot about different kinds of different people, but I don't want to like.
Well, you don't have to unless you want to. You don't have to run anybody down by name.
No, I won't. I won't.
But
I've got some stories.
So I was curious as to whether you experienced any weirdness or, any untoward behavior, especially in those early days.
I felt like people were nice to me. Well, they were, but apart from you telling you about the church burning as a gift thing, that I thought was weird. But yeah, I think people were quite respectful and treating you nicely. And yeah, I don't have. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't feel like people were weird till later. Maybe I was just like trying to like, what is this about? I don't know. It was just being there and being focused on playing and hanging out. And yeah, I don't think I was so judgmental at the time. Maybe.
But it never struck me either when you joined the band. I was never thinking like, oh, this woman she's definitely not a black metal person. It was nothing like that at all. Your ideas, the chemistry with the people in the band and stuff kind of came naturally. So it wasn't like having a R&B girl in the band, It was kind of, you are an alternative person, and you accept people as they are, and all that kind of stuff that is pretty normal in the scene.
I was at Fortress Festival 2 weekends ago, and one of the things I did a bunch of interviews when I was there, and then Dale from Cult Never Dies did an interview with Tom Warrior. And the interview was reasonably good, and I thought Tom was an interesting character. But the one thing that he did do that I found was quite distasteful, or annoyed me a little bit, was right at the start of the conversation. I think Dale asked him a question to the effect of, how do you feel being at a black metal festival, of being one of the people that created the genre, And he decided to use that as a springboard to go on a rant about how toxic the scene has become, and it's misogynistic and it's homophobic and it's this, that, and the other. And I sat there thinking to myself, like, based on what? I've been into this music now since the very early 90s. I've been into metal since I was 9 years old, since 1989. I've been to over probably 650 to 700 shows. In my lifetime. I have never once seen anybody. I've never seen like one of those moments where it's like, you don't look like you belong in these parts kind of shit. I've never seen any overt racism. I've never seen any overt misogyny. If I take Paige as somebody who's come from outside the scene, everybody is always super cool to her. Everybody's super cool to me. This has always felt to me like a scene that kind of welcomes in the outcasts and the people that are different, which is why it attracts such an eclectic group of people. So I was very like, when he said that, I thought to myself, that feels like I wouldn't call it. It feels like grandstanding in the worst and most distasteful possible way.
Yeah, he is doing that more and more, not to kind of get into all the from meat business to Gordon Ramsay hatred, but I have to, fuck that shit. I'm gonna take that back to him. I think it's really pissy being like that. There's 3 bands we all come from. It's Venom, Celtic Frost, and Bathory. And he should maybe be a little bit more proud of it instead of going on these rants every time anyone is trying to talk to him about it. And there's at least 30 years since he had a little oomph in his fucking black metal. So I don't know. I listen to Bathory, man.
Yeah, as I said, I just thought to myself, like, what exactly do you base this on? Like, where's your evidence? Where's the real life examples of where this has happened? Because
there is no hatred. Like,
no,
I worked. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I worked for 10 years in the big concert industry in Oslo for everything from Tina Turner and Boyzone to all the rappers and all that shit. And I guarantee you, the metal concerts are the gigs with the least trouble.
Yeah.
Even though people are fucking drunk out of their head, they go to the gig and they leave. That doesn't happen when fucking 50 Cent is showing up. I can guarantee you. And when Christina Aguilera is playing, you have to carry 300 fucking kids out who's almost passed out and dying, and there's men touching and groping, and I fuck that shit. There's compared to all the other scenes, and especially the hip-hop scene and stuff where people actually shoot each other and all that stuff, black metal is not racist. It hasn't got anything with that. When we come together and listen to the music, all that shit goes out the door mostly. If it's a good band, who fucking cares? You listen, you enjoy. Yeah. And you enjoy with the people around you because they are of the same mind kind of set. But maybe that says more about Tom, that his mind has kind of left the building where the rest of us are, and the feeling is not mutual anymore.
Well, there's definitely that undercurrent that I feel like he feels he's appealing to, where, no excuse is good enough. The guys from Horner can say we're completely apolitical, we want nothing to do with politics. Well, that's not good enough. It's things like that just I've never been able to wrap my head around. I've spoken about it in the podcast many times before. I don't know what they expect from folks. Like, if you've done something stupid 20 years in your past, should you apologize for it every single day, or every single interview that you do? It's like some sort of land affirmation. Listen, I just want to say 25 years ago I said something bad, right before we start. I just want to apologize for that again. And it detracts from things, or it detracts from the enjoyment that I have in the artists that do that sort of thing, because I feel like you come from a scene where freedom of expression, where rebelliousness, where that sort of anarchic feeling was really commonplace. And you need the characters that are on the periphery in order for that to happen, in order for that to come to life. But let's talk about the recording. Let's start with Spell, because Dolgar, I said to you, to me, this was like one of the biggest revelations, revisiting it again after a couple of years of not really listening to it all that much. It still sounds absolutely extraordinary, and I do want to clarify tonight who is responsible for that intro to the shivering voice of the ghost, because it is amazing. I mean, in terms of something that sets the atmosphere, or sets the scene for the rest of the EP so perfectly. There's it's got this almost like church kind of vibe to it, like a choral vibe to it when it starts. It's like funeral music, but in a non-cheesy way, if that makes sense. But talk to me a little bit about how the album came, or it's not the album, the EP, how that came together from your perspective, and some of your memories of recording that EP.
Like mentioned, we were supposed to do it as a split with Ulva, which is why we decided to do as few songs as we did on the album. Before we actually ended up recording First Spell, we were in the studio supposed to have recorded a full-length album, so we did have more than enough songs to do a full album when we did actually do First Spell. So we kind of chose the songs that we felt made sense to put together, which were then the 4 songs, except for excluding Angel Wings, which was Metallion from Head and Found asked us to redo that one for the First Spell as well. We got into the studio and we had of course already recorded Black-Seared Heart in the same studio. We knew that Talia, the engineer, producer, he was really, really great guy to work with. We knew that his studio was top-notch at the time. And then for the aborted album recording that we tried, and then in another studio where we felt that nothing really kind of clicked, the sound wasn't what we were looking for, etc. So when we then went back to Soundwave to do First Spell, we felt like, I mean, we'd only been there once before, but it kind of felt like going home again. And he, Talia, knew who we were. He knew what we wanted. He knew that we wanted to use the crappy equipment that we brought along ourselves, you know, cheap guitars, cheap Pee-wee amplifiers. He knew how to make those sound the way we wanted them to sound. And he also was really energetic. And he had like a lot of ideas for things where we wanted, like for overdubs or effects or stuff, and some of them were cool and some of them were not. And then when we turned his ideas down and he wasn't, you know, like pissed at us for rejecting his ideas, he was just, okay, cool, you do what you need to do. And if he had an idea that was like, I hear like, maybe it sounds like you should do something like this, and we were like, okay, let's try it. And if it worked out, cool. The atmosphere in the studio was really, really great. Even though we were pressed for time, he helped us, you know, accomplish what we wanted to do, basically. And also it was really, really great, since this was the first time in the studio with both Svartalv and Sarcana. So we felt like a complete band in the studio for the first time, which was also very, very cool, because the aborted album recording prior to First Spell was before Sarcana joined us. So we were supposed to have done the keyboards ourselves. The rest of the band, they would have been a lot simpler than what Sarcana managed to do the album. And well, as you mentioned, the truth behind who did what for the intro for Shivering Voice is probably a version based both on what Samrab remembers and how Sarcana remembers it. I've always thought of it as something that was mostly hers, but yeah, Samrab told me that it was something he and his father had worked out and then presented to her at some point. So that's just yeah.
But so Sarcana, what's your take on that?
They lost the tapes, so there was no. Everything was trying to recall it from some description kind of thing. So yeah, they lost it in a way. So I had to kind of figure out what they had made from.
Okay, so
that's why.
So you were working to a brief, in other words.
I was what?
You were working to a brief. To an outline of what they kind of said this is, but it was your interpretation.
Yeah, trying to do what what they had made, trying to restore what had been made, but without really knowing how what they had made sounded. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And Sarcana, you need to correct me on this one, but my recollection of the solo in Shivering Voice is that you pretty much wrote that while we were in the studio. You hadn't really written that up front. Am I wrong, or is that true?
I mean, most of the music I wrote on my mother's piano, because I really I get inspired by playing on acoustic instruments. That inspires me the most. So I think that I remember I made that is actually inspired by Doors, the solo, and I remember I think I made the outlines for the solo at home. I'm sure I did, because that was how I worked. And the big part in the studio was making it fit. I wasn't that tight rhythmically, so it was making it fit with the drumming and the rhythms. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, because I seem to remember that I had not heard that solo before you actually sat down in the studio and started recording it. So
me neither.
So I kind of had the idea that you had not necessarily improvised it while we were in the studio, but that you were pretty much, it was very fresh, or you were kind of writing it as you went along.
I wrote it at home, but it was like fresh.
Cool.
We hadn't rehearsed it.
No. So that part of my recollection of it is at least correct then.
I think I remember the same thing. I remember how kind of like, the last tone of the solo, how it kind of ends and boom, the next riff goes. How everyone was like, yeah, fuck yeah, finally. And while they were talking now, I was thinking back, as you said, the Doors thing. And then suddenly I got the whole solo thing in my head, and it's really the Doors kind of thing. The way you kind of climb up and go, it's like, yeah, that took me 30 years to recognize.
Sarcana, you mentioned being inspired by playing on acoustic instruments. Well, what is it about acoustic instruments that you find inspiring?
It's the vibration. I can feel the vibration of acoustic instruments in a way. I don't know. It's the sound. It's the feeling. If you compare a keyboard to a real piano, or what's it called? Those flügel in
grand pianos, I think.
Grand pianos, yeah. Those. The rich sound and the vibration, you can feel it. It's different than when it's electrical, especially when it's a keyboard. And I have the same thing with guitars. When I play guitar, I normally just pick up the acoustic guitar, because it's I can feel the vibrations, and it inspires me. I don't know.
Acoustic instruments also don't allow any margin. There's no margin for error. So if you make a mistake, it's immediately visible. You can hide it with something electric, but you can't hide it with something acoustic.
True.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but I love the sound of electric instruments too. But it's just when I compose or make stuff, then it's the acoustic sound that inspires me somehow. And as I said, I made most of the stuff on my mother's piano, because that was the sound. It was just inspiring to me to do that.
What did she think of her daughter's involvement with the ruffians in Gehenna and with the black metal scene?
Oh, you should ask her. She was, I think she was a bit terrified. She thought I was like becoming a witch, and she didn't approve very much. No, she didn't. Of course she didn't. She wanted me to dance ballet and wear pink.
None of our parents loved that we were into this shit, because people were dying and churches burning and we were all over the fucking place. So I don't think collectively our parents hated it, but some were better at hiding it than others. I know my mom really fucking hates it, and I found the first spell inside her towel cabinet inside the bathroom. Like, why the fuck is it here? She just shoved it in there 30 years ago.
Paige made a joke once and said, actually not a joke, an observation. She said, like, your parents treat the podcast and anything to do with music that you're into like you're like a drug addiction. It's like we're just not talking about Jackie's addiction to heroin. It's like that part stays out of the conversation. So I can
talk about metal.
I can absolutely relate. I mean, I can tell them, I was in Norway, I was interviewing, a bunch of different bands, or I did this, they don't give a fuck. They don't want to know, they don't want to hear anything about it. Right. I did laugh though, because I said to my mom, I posted something on Facebook where I said happy birthday to my mom, and you had Ghoul from Mayhem and you and a bunch of other people like the post to say happy birthday. I said, like, do you realize if I were a 14-year-old kid looking at that list, my knees would be wobbling, because you've literally got like the who's who of death metal and black metal, at least in my mind, who have all said happy birthday to you. So yeah, she did find that amusing, at least. I don't think it would motivate her to listen to any of the music, though.
But I see several people within black metal who had support from their parents. Like, I think Sanrab, his father was a musician. Yeah. He was like driving us around. He was so supportive musically. And I just recently, for a year ago, watched a documentary about Enslaved, and their parents were just like letting them play in the house, and just they seemed so, in the documentary, so supportive. So I mean, all parents are not the same.
No. I also still have my Black Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath vinyl that I still have in my collection. Is one I was actually my dad's. so he kind of was into some of the musically, at least, some of the same vibes. So yeah, he was he wasn't really against it. At least he bought me the guitar that I wanted, and so they were supportive. I think they probably would have wished that the theme would have been something else.
yeah, that's what I kind of meant too. Like, of course, they supported us. Morten's or Sanrab's dad, especially, he was really supportive to Sanrab and to us and everything. But also, like Dolgar's parents, I don't know Sarcana's parents that well, but I think I remember your dad driving around here and there, or was it your mom? And I know my dad was driving me around, so they supported us. Also, probably to kind of have a little feeling that they were kind of around us, that we didn't kind of just distance ourselves.
Of course.
But I don't know. As Dolgar,
we were doing.
Yeah, kind of. I love. My dad liked driving me down to the studio in Sandnes, where the Soundsweet studio was, and I think he just wanted to be a little bit around us before he saw let me go, more or less. But I think they hated the background, because it was in the media, and that was pretty intense. But we all had, like, in that sense, good parents, and I think that goes for most of the black metal guys from Norway and Sweden and stuff, or the rest of the world.
Around the time that First Spell came out is when things really started to ratchet up, right? In the media, the all the drama, all the chaos, and all the stuff. I told Svartalv the other day, I actually discovered black metal at the same time that I discovered gangster rap, because there was this mass panic about it in South Africa, and it was like, on one page of the magazine they had Emperor and Burzum, and on the other page they had Ice-T, and I was like, both of these seem like pursuits I need to look into in more detail. So when you first heard First Spell, Svartalv, what were your thoughts?
Wow, did that come out of us? It was pretty surreal, especially when we got the printed one, and you sit down and you're still in your fucking boy room, and you're putting this thing on, and it's like, that is actually us. And it, as we already talked about, the album or the EP sounds really good, and it really did back then too, and you could compare it to all the things that you loved, and it's like, wow, it kind of holds up. And it had this feeling of, we did something here. And I have been on other albums that I didn't really feel that we did something like, but this was special. It's a feeling I really cherish. You can't really get back that kind of feeling, the first recording, the first album kind of thing. There's so much emotions in it, and thoughts and feelings, and it's magical, truly magical.
Dolgar, what did you think?
I think it sounds it doesn't sound like it's 30 years old.
Definitely not. No, I 100% agree with that.
It still sounds relevant. And I'm also, I mean, 30 years is a long time, so you can safely say that I've gotten, the distance that I need for kind of listening to it from, not entirely from an outside looking in perspective, but at least I got some of that now. So yeah, I think it's it makes me proud to the extent that I would imagine if I hadn't recorded that myself, I would have easily thought that whoever made that must still be proud of it, and I still am. So yeah, I mean I can still listen to it, and it's not something that sometimes you look back on stuff that you've done before and you feel like, well, okay, I wish I would have done this and that differently, but I don't get that from first spell or second spell for that matter. But yeah, so it's probably very, very close to how I would have wanted it to sound if we were to do it today. I know that if we had done it today, it wouldn't have sounded like that. But yeah, it's exactly what I would have wanted it to be.
Sarcana, what do you think? Like, what's your, if you go back to that EP now, what's your favorite song on that release?
Oh, yeah, favorite song. I don't know. Maybe it's Conquering of Heroes, or Morning Star.
Morning Star.
Morning.
Morning Star.
Morning Star.
Morning Star.
I was say you're not forgetting the names of your own songs.
I know. The thing is, I've been always so self-centered. When I heard songs, I was only like listening to the keyboards and how were they playing, and listening.
You never heard what we played, actually. My God.
Yeah, I catched myself actually like, oh, I'm so focused on my own playing, but of course I also heard the others playing too. But the thing I didn't listen very much to, that was the lyrics and the singing. And what amazes me now, like when I hear it again, is how well put also the singing, if you can call it singing, growling, is, and the voicing. I mean, but I feel maybe it's put very much back, like it's not as loud as normally you would put vocals. You would put them further in front. It's like it's a bit down, if I can say it, and the music is higher, and yeah, so that has amazed me. Like now, like that is actually good, and I think also that needs to deserve some attention and respect. I mean, that is one of the reasons why Gehenna, I think, is so good, because also song-wise, the singing also is good. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think if I just focus on that EP first, incredibly catchy riffing. You guys were creating densely atmospheric songs without any reliance on blast beats or any of the tropes that a lot of black metal bands were following at the time. And I think you make a great point about the vocals. The vocals were so different to anything else that was coming out. There was always that joke about people sticking their head in the tumble dryer and screaming, and that's what a lot of bands were using for vocals. But this was really well enunciated vocals, like very articulate, very, very clear, not as high pitched, almost kind of growls, as you say. And another thing that I'm just a stickler for, the rhythm in the vocals, the way that the lines were presented, they kind of had their own hook and their own beat and their own vibe, and I fucking love that. Absolutely love it.
Thank you.
I think that is some of the heavy metal things that we all, at least Sunrup and Dolgar, grew up with. Look, I don't know if you guys can see it, but if you look behind Dolgar's head, there's the 9.5 nasty W.A.S.P picture disc and shit like that. When you grow up with that, you don't do jazz vocals, man. You start making, as you say, you make hooks and you make it kind of work. It is an instrument. And watching Sunrub and Dolgar doing their vocals, and we spent a lot of time in the woods around the house where Sunrub lives, and they were actually really, they are the guys who taught me how to kind of like, you have to practice your vocals. I've seen these holler monkeys out there in the fucking woods going like for hours, and I remember Sunrub even developing this whole, you remember, Dolgar, when Sunrub developed this way of kind of inflating the bottom part of his neck or his throat? They got this half froggy kind of, it's like experimenting like that. And as you said, for me, the gateway with Gehenna is the vocals. They are so different. There's only the band Incarnator, which, has some history to Gehenna, that kind of has those vocals that are so far in the back there. But it's crystal clear, snarling, and very controlled, very, very occult sounding. At least that's what I got from it,
Meditative. It's almost like a lot of the ritualistic or the ritual black metal bands that come out now, they kind of have that same vibe. I think they draw a lot of inspiration from the first and second spell releases.
Yeah, I think like Svartalv touched upon is, I think it's actually a good point that we grew up with some of the regular heavy metal idols that we were like. One of my favorite vocalists of all time is Blackie Lawless. Obviously, I can't sing like him, so instead of relying on a melodic voice, we have to rely on a rhythmic and a emotional, if you will, voice to kind of purvey the meaning of the words, and also, using it in line with the riffs, so that you don't kind of crash the emotion that you're doing with the vocals. Don't make that crash with the atmosphere that's there in the music behind them. You have to play along with them, not try to fight against them. You have to make the whole song seem like it wants to go the same way, wants to say the same thing. And sometimes some vocalists in this genre, or for that matter in regular death metal, where it's very linear. So there's no like dynamics, there's no emotional difference to how some of them express one word from the other. Everything is very linear, and some of these bands, even bands that I really like, where you could almost take the vocal track from one song and stick it on the next song and the next song and the next song, and it's all the same because it's like dum 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 dum.
I call them typewriter vocals. It's
yeah.
You get it with death metal especially. Like there's certain bands it's like it's like it's so I can't stand it. I mean, it puts me off listening to the band altogether because I'm exactly the way I'm exactly aligned to your thinking there. I have to have dynamics in vocals, and I'm a big fan of people that have the. I liken it to kind of the best old school hip hop from Eric B. and Rakim, the DOC, stuff like that from the early 90s. That ability to turn the vocals into a hook because of the way that you're phrasing certain words or the way that you injecting rhythm into certain vocal lines. That's a rare gift, and in my view, the best of the best bands do that, and they do it extremely well. That to me is something that separates. And you mentioned Blackie Lawless. He's somebody that used to be able to do that extraordinarily well too.
Yeah. No, I've many times said that some vocalists, they are among my favorites, not because they're the best singers per se, but they are the best in doing an emotional performance, if you will. Let's just do an example of, again, with back to Bathory, when he started doing, clean vocal lines and eventually entire songs, maybe. No one with a, no sane person in the world would say he's a great vocalist when he tries to play vocals. But holy fuck, is his vocals, filled with emotion. You can really feel that. He means that stuff, when he says whatever in a song, it sounds like it comes from the heart and not just from words on a page. Like some vocalists that, could outdo him in clean singing any day of the month, but they just don't sound like they mean it. So I'm probably not, the first one to say it, but I sometimes refer to vocalists as perfectly imperfect because they are not musically perfect, but they are, let's say, atmospheric or emotionally perfect, and they manage to do a song that feels real instead of just feels like it's being polished to death, if you will.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Now let's talk W.A.S.P, because they often come up as a topic of conversation on the podcast. I've spoken for many episodes about how big of a fan I am of that band and how overlooked I think they are. What are your favorite W.A.S.P tracks? Like your reference W.A.S.P songs?
Whoa, that's a hard one. Hard one.
Oh.
Well, whilst they're mulling that over, Sarcana, are you a fan of W.A.S.P?
I'm sorry, I never listened to W.A.S.P. I don't know.
My God.
It's okay. We knew that already from the first day you came in to the rehearsal.
That was part of the interview questions. Like, hey, listen, first question, are you a fan of W.A.S.P?
So I can imagine, Sarcana, when we go like, whoa, but we completely got into it and drunk and shit, and she's like, what the fuck are these guys doing? She didn't have the reference point, and then it starts looking really fucking moronic what you're doing, No, but W.A.S.P is like, I watch all your shows and stuff, and I know you've been talking about it. The whole last year has been a lot of talk about W.A.S.P from different people, and it is very important. It wasn't a cool thing to say back in the early 90s that W.A.S.P had that much to do with it. Then it was much easier to say that, I grew up with Kiss. But W.A.S.P is the first band who came out there and scared the shit out of people. Before that, you weren't really scared about Kiss. Maybe when you were a little kid, Gene Simmons could kind of freak you a little bit out, but when Blackie comes out there, full of fucking alcohol and drugs and does his crazy shit stuff that he's doing in especially 84 and 85, man, that influenced all of us. Absolutely all of us. And I had deep conversations with Frost about this 30 years ago. And he eventually sold his W.A.S.P collection and got into black metal. But I know he was super influenced by it. Look at the guy, he would be the perfect W.A.S.P kind of drummer, just this silent beast back there. And the whole scene, the way we act, the way we're on stage. Go and look at Niflheim play, man. It's integral in the way we act, and combine that then with, of course, Kiss and Black Sabbath, and then you get black metal, kind of thing. So Blackie and his attitude, do it yourself, fuck you, I can do it, I don't give a flying fuck. That's what came through to me when I remember the day Wild Child was released on Skytrax on Sky Channel in 1985, coming home from school, sitting cross-legged in front of the TV, and there comes Blackie fucking driving down that desert road. I was fucking sold. I was like, I'm fucking out of here, Mom. Fuck you, I'm gonna be this guy. I went straight up to the marching band I was in and delivered my trumpet and like, nope, this ain't happening. And, just W.A.S.P. And to pick a favorite song from W.A.S.P, it's the hardest thing ever. I could spend a whole day listening to the Idol album on repeat. Or I could go back and listen to the old stuff, and it's different emotions. At the time, as we speak, Headless Children is my favorite thing as we speak. I had just this refound love of that album again. the layering. It's almost like black metal. You know, it's just layers and layers and layers going.
You're absolutely right. Actually, there is kind of on some of the songs. There's definitely like almost a proto black metal vibe to the riffing.
Yeah, and with the vocals too. You know, whoa, 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 just 10 layers of raging on top there. Of course, we learn from that shit. You know.
Yeah. My discovery of W.A.S.P was a friend of mine giving me a cassette of Inside the Electric Circus, and I remember 9-5 Nasty and Mantronic. Those were my vibes. But since then, my favorite songs are The Manimal on Live in the Raw. I've absolutely fucking love it.
That's the opening there. You know, the way he builds it up there.
Genius. Absolutely.
When he's kind of talking it up, and you're 14 years old and go, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, but yeah.
Oh, dude, when I was 14, I was like, you're speaking my language. And then the Crimson Idol is my other favorite. The Gypsy Meets the Boy is just, oh my God. Like, if you can't hear that and go like, so many bands since have copied that style of riff writing, dynamics, building up a song. It's fucking absolutely incredible. And again, vocal wise, there are when it comes to clean vocals, there's a handful of men that touch Blackie Lawless when he's at his absolute peak.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's not. It's definitely not a favorite song. But since you were mentioning Crimson Idol, I'm really happy that he included the song Miss You on the re-recorded version, because that actually very much belongs on that album, I think. So really happy that he redid it all with that song as an inclusion on it.
Yeah.
I have to see if I have it. Sorry. I'm just gonna check on my computer.
Yeah, I'm just having a gander now at the track listing on the Headless Children. Forever Free, absolutely brilliant. Mean Man, genius. Mephisto Waltz, incredible. The song The Headless Children, absolutely fucking brilliant.
I think the only song on Headless Children that I don't really like that much is the cover, the Who cover, the Real Me.
Yeah, that's kind of boring.
It kind of doesn't really feel the same as the rest of the album, because the rest of the album has, you know, this really somber kind of atmosphere to it, and then the Real Me is, it's just too jazzy.
Too happy.
It's too happy.
One thing that I found really funny, by the way, is that he's now back to playing Animal when they play live, which I thought, like, how does Jesus feel about that? All right, but Sarcana is feeling left out, so let's move on to Second Spell. But it's a nice segue, though, because when I was listening back to Second Spell in the last couple of weeks, the one of the things that like popped up so many times as I'm listening to the record is you absolutely can hear a love of old school heavy metal. You know, almost kind of like stadium metal, like Kiss, W.A.S.P. You can hear it shine through. Like, you guys weren't ashamed of wearing those influences very, very loudly on your sleeves at times. Like, they weren't deployed in such a way that, you know, they gave the game away, if that makes sense. But they were definitely present. Like, you listen to Lord of Flies, or I would argue even A Witch is Born, Sharake, Kanum. You can definitely hear those influences on those tracks. And the other thing, Svartalv, is what I love about this record, the production of this album, is your bass is so clear. It's got like a real, like, again, it's got like almost like an old school heavy metal vibe to it. The bass, like just the way that it sounds, or the way that it comes out of the mix. But so Sarcana, talk me through like your memories of this record, writing it, recording it, putting it, everything together.
I think, in a way it was different because first spell was, I had just started in Gehenna, and while second spell, there are a lot more songs where I contributed and was a part of the making. I don't know. Maybe I should take the songs are very different. I think a song like Winterrike, which is actually one of my favorite songs. I mean, everything felt just intuitive. I think it's like it all. There is a riff there, like when I hear it now, it sounds like ABBA in a way. It reminds me, but it's so catchy. I think what I was amazed by Sanrab, who has written most of the guitar riffs in Gehenna, is that the way the riffs kind of are built up, so they kind of enhance each other. So they like, oh, it feels like you hear this riff and then it kind of changes into this riff, which is kind of a relief. Feels like a relief, you know. And when it goes over to this heavy metal style, the switch in it. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot to say, but it's also a long time, so I forgot a lot about the process. It just felt it wasn't a hard process. Like I felt like third spell, which came later, was sort of forcing. Like that was a tougher job than second spell.
And why is that, do you think?
Because expectations, I guess, and you kind of like the second spell, you were like still doing things for fun, and you were allowing to be creative, and I guess you were more daring when it came to making the music, and there was more room for the keyboards to more space. I think that at least that was for me. It felt like that there was more playroom, more place to play. Yeah. What else?
Can I kind of interrupt you just for a second, Sarcana? Because I remember you and me. We were at Malmberg's place from Mysticum shortly after we recorded a second spell, and we brought the advanced tape and we played it to all the guys that were there. And you told me after, I don't remember if you said it out loud, but at least I remember you told me that, you know, if people don't like this, then there's something wrong with them, kind of thing. That wasn't the exact word you used, but something to that effect. Was like, I could, you know, tell that you were really proud of this record that we just made, and that you were 100% satisfied and convinced that this was something that, you know, would appeal to everyone, that would, you know, at least everyone present there, which was, you know, only black metal people, I guess. So yeah, that's a memory that stuck to my mind, because, you know, the pride that you had for the album that we just done was, you know, uplifting to me to hear you say that.
Cool. Yeah, I forgot about that, but when I hear it today, I feel proud. I think it's the best album. Actually, when I hear second spell, it feels like free and like playing, and it's like not, you know, not trying to force anything. It's like letting the creativity flow. That is what I hear when I hear this song, the songs on this album. Yeah.
So, Svartalv, you mentioned something interesting to me when we saw each other in Norway, and that was around the release date of this record. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the release date of the album was delayed, correct?
Not on that one. It was on the first spell was supposed to come out. If the whole thing, I don't know, in Oslo hadn't happened in 93, 94 and stuff, I think So I think you kind of get it mixed up with the first spell. First spell was we had to wait a long time for Head Not Found to take over and to figure out how to release this, and we were supposed to do it with Ulver, but then it got. So the first spell is the one who's kind of like late, and but second spell was also the songs was already kind of written while we had the first spell thing going, and so basically from when I joined the band, like in 93 till 95, it was just like this long, continuous creative process where we made all these songs, let's say 15, 20 songs that appears on those early album kind of things. So, but I don't actually remember anything around the dates on the second spell at all.
But I do remember that first spell was not yet actually released.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it was delayed. So we recorded second spell before first spell was actually released.
With that delay of the first spell, do you think that hurt the band?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
we probably needed that half year, 9 months extra. it couldn't probably have done any harm. We got a little bit more time to think things through. I think it would have been much more kind of helter-skelter thing if we just fell into it late summer of 93 or something like that. So it was probably for the better, I think.
Yeah, also the fact that
we got Dirge on the drums, and Sarcana came in and all that kind of stuff too. So we were a full band. If we had tried in the start, there would have been 3 people in a drum machine. It would have been a very different thing.
You're talking about the aborted album Svartalv. I think the question was if the delayed release of the actual first spell was hurting, right?
Oh, in that sense, yeah. No, of course. I think if it had been released even just a half year earlier, it would have gotten a bit more attention. Even a bit more months than that. Those 93, 94, 95, when those albums from the different bands came out, some of them just shot out of nowhere, and everyone knew about it the day after. And some just, were forgotten a little bit. And I don't know. In that sense, yeah, it might have hurt a little bit, yeah.
But I do think, though, that it would have hurt a lot more if the same thing had happened, today, because today you had like 50 albums being released every month. Whilst way back then it would have been, 3 albums, if that even, every month. So there was not the same, it wouldn't have drowned in the masses, if you will.
No, that's true.
Being delayed, like would very well have been, the issue if that had happened today, I think.
Yeah.
So, Dolgar, what were you setting out to create with second spell? Because I mean, you'd written the songs for first spell, very well received release. What were you wanting to achieve with second spell? Like, did you have any? Was there self-imposed pressure on you to top what you had done previously?
We weren't really conscious about that because, a lot of the songs on second spell were already, halfway, somewhere even close to finish. Like Sarcana already mentioned, like Witch is Born, she didn't really feel she contributed that much because we had, pretty much already finished the song. So I think what we wanted to expand upon what we had done because first spell was a bit, slower than second spell. So we wanted to up the tempo a little bit and make it a little bit more aggressive, and also make it, if you want to say experimental, maybe compared to how first spell was done. Just use some more of the tools that we now had available, being a more confident band, given that we'd been the same band for from one album to the other, and that we knew each other, we knew how to rely on each other's skills as musicians better, and the freedom that I'm very happy to hear Sarcana mention that you felt she had. That goes, for all of us, drums, guitars, bass, vocals, everything, that we were, we were confident that we could all do the best and that we were all focused on, making the songs, the album, the best they could be, while still allowing us to, experiment a little bit and pushing the boundaries a bit of what we had already done with First Spell. So if First Spell was from one song to the other, not, the songs didn't differ maybe that much from one to the other. People might disagree with me on that. I felt that to a larger extent, we were, trying to do that with Second Spell, making one song more unique to the other songs on the album, compared to how we at least thought about doing it when we recorded the First Spell. So yeah.
Which kind of goes back to that old school heavy metal ethos, because I think for a period of time in metal, and it was really more a couple of years after Second Spell came out, but there was definitely a period of time where I think a lot of bands lost sight of that journey that you need to take somebody on when you do a record, like that end-to-end journey where you're, you are, like, if we take, I always use Master of Puppets as the example because I think it's such a well-sequenced record, but, you start with Battery, then it's on to, something that's, a little bit dark, a little bit more epic in Master of Puppets, and you've got this fucking crazy heavy thing and the thing that should not be. Then it's a, slower track in Sanitarium. It's an incredibly well sequenced album, but it's also, the songs are very nicely self-contained, but they also have a natural ebb and flow to them.
Yeah, we always were, we didn't set the order of the songs that they were going to go on the album until we had actually finished the recording and mixing, because we wanted to know exactly what every song sounded like when it was done. And then we set the sequence of them because, we were also, very, we wanted to make the entire journey of listening to the album, if you will, from start to finish, make sense. Not just one song should make sense on its own, of course, but the entire listening experience of the album should also make sense from one song to the other. Even, all the way down to details like if one song's end in one certain note, then maybe the next song following should not start in the same note. So and making it a vibrant and dynamic experience listening to the album from start to finish as well, not just one song on its own.
I think that comes from that, as you said, Jackie, that whole heavy metal kind of attitude thing. That's what makes a lot of those albums up until the late 90s, is that each song can kind of stand out as its own story, its own storyline. You can it is only for that one, but it connects a little bit with the next one, like old Iron Maiden albums, and of course King Diamond albums, and even things like Master's Hammer, for example, things that are thought through a little bit, and the way you put songs together and the way you build it up. And as I said, there's a whole journey, and I think that Second Spell has that journey kind of feeling, same as Nightside Eclipse for Emperor, for example. It's a very well put through thing that I'm sure the guys in Pink Floyd who kind of invented this way of thinking music, would be kind of proud of us, the way we think, because you think outside the box of being just this band and here's our 10 tracks and someone at the label put it together, you can't do that.
Just this kind of slapdash effort where it's like, 10 tracks, take it or leave it. We've done our bit, we filled 45 minutes.
Here's some of those big bands, it's like, we recorded 30 songs and we sent them off to the label and they picked 30 fucking songs. Focus on 10, 12, 15 and pick them out. Do it yourself. Don't send it to some PR fucking moron, And I think you can hear that even today, when people like me, I'm a bit of a complainer of the modern music thing, but it goes mostly to those old bands and they lose that kind of thing. Listen to, like, hear your last episode where we talked about, and you played that new Destruction thing, and there is no story feeling kind of thing going on there anymore. Like in even their early albums, it's generic and it's, I don't know, the vocals just been put in there. There's some really bad lyrics going around, and it's, I don't know, shit doesn't fit together.
Stop the hate, change your fate.
That's fucking bad.
I can't hear shit like that.
Then the cool thing with like Old Destruction was some of their lyrics, but that was written when they were really like illiterate on English, and you have stuff like aggressive death coming up from noise, and it's like that's so far out that it's actually cool. That the line he came with now is taken straight out of Greta Thunberg's little dictionary thing. It's like, fuck, man, that's fucking bad. I just completely lose interest. And when you then have that generic nuclear blast kind of sound on top of it, it's like, just, oh man, come on. I'd rather listen to Sandra from Germany instead.
Yeah, no, 100%. You touch on something that I'm curious about, though. At the time where you guys were doing Second Spell and First Spell, actually, who were the bands in the scene that you looked up to, whose music you really liked, and that you would look at and you go like, "Fucking these guys are the gold standard in the scene right now"?
Dark Throne.
Yeah.
Emperor.
An Emperor, yeah.
Rotting Christ, Samael, Master's Hammer. I call it the southern black metal. It's it's Samael, Monumentum. I don't know. We heard
what was the Samael record that you were particularly keen on, just out of interest?
The two
records,
first,
I could say,
and the million demo things. But those two first ones, they're one of those. I think Samael, in a way, influenced us more than we know. They are one of those few who kind of kept the tempo down a little bit, and the vocals a bit deeper and more back. So I don't know, Dolgar, did Samael influence us a bit more?
I remember when Ceremony of the Opposites was released, everyone was really raving about it, but I was disappointed by that album. I thought that Blood Ritual...
That sounds modern. There's a line there for me. It's like, boom! And then you have Ceremonies of the Opposites. You have that the Thousand Lakes album from Amorphis. Domination from Morbid Angel, as we talked about before. There's like this wall that goes around somewhere between 94 and 95 with those albums. So the same thing with Rotting Christ and stuff like that too. I love that early Rotting Christ stuff, which is, it's badly played, but it's well played anyhow, and it sounds weird and it's perfectly unperfect. Yeah, it's just so beautiful.
You see, like I think it's also maybe an age thing. I'm slightly younger than you guys. For me, like the seminal records or the gateway records, Domination was definitely hugely influential. I remember hearing that the first time, being blown away. Triarchy of the Lost Lovers, absolutely loved that. I love Ceremony of Opposites. It took me a few years to thoroughly wrap my head around Blood Ritual. When I did, though, that's my favorite Samael record now. Like, I think after the Sepultura especially, I mean, it's just, that is to me just perfection. Yeah, it's funny, like, it's just that slight difference. In the Nightside Eclipse was very important to me as well. Anthems to the Welkin of Dusk was highly important also. Just to Sarcana's point about Emperor. And now, reverse question: who were the bands that came out of the scene that would express an enjoyment or an affection for Gehenna's sound? Like, who are the guys that came to you guys and said, I really like what you do?
I remember the first letters that we got from Chris from Ulva. That was really great, because that was one of the first people in the scene outside of our own area geographically that we started actually talking to. I mean, before that, it was just, I know that Samad talked to Euronymous because we ordered a lot of records from Helvete. But
I talked to, you remember Mire from Psy?
Mm-hmm.
He was one of those guys I talked to really, really early and sent him probably promo tape or something like that. He was really into the stuff.
Yeah, he sent me a mail or something. I got a mail from him.
From Mire? Oh.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it was really exotic, you know,
letter.
getting a tape from Japan and sending our...
So, Sarcana, again, as somebody who was initially outside the scene, who was the most interesting person that you met in those early days of all the characters we've discussed? I mean, we've spoken about Euronymous. Who was the most interesting person that you met during that time?
The most interesting,
aside from present company.
I don't know, because interesting in what way?
Memorable, strange, weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were a lot of different characters. Let's say that different people, and yeah. As I said before, like, I don't want to hang anyone out and say anything bad about anyone. Yeah. Yeah.
The whole scene was kind of characters, you know. It was just it was a rat pack of characters from around, you know. I don't know where we all came out of our little holes from, but everyone was characters. Maybe that's the difference from today. There's not a where did the fucking characters go, you know? I don't meet any of those characters.
And I feel like I cannot mention anyone without, like, sort of making fun of them in a way, like, because they were characters.
But they know they are characters. People can characterize me from afar, and I don't give a shit. Like, you know, like Albert from Immortal with all his antics, you know, and all the things, you know. Everyone had their little thing about them. Oh, that's him, you know. Oh no, of course, yeah, that's him. He's doing it this way or that way, or everyone was kind of like a special little wanky screw in the box. I think that's what's made up the scene too, you know. We didn't feel at home in any other place. So
I do think you've got a point there, because I also think that's why people are so infatuated with, because I don't think fascination is the right word. I think that's why they're so infatuated with like Norway, you know, early 90s. You know, people, for whatever reason, just cannot get enough of talking about the scene and about mulling over the smallest detail about every single thing that happened there. I think a large part of it is because of the characters, and because people like to sort of unpick, you know, what made those folks tick, you know, how they were, the little quirks that people didn't necessarily see. Dial from Cult Never Dies told me the other day about something. It's in the Black Metal Evolution of the Cult book that he wrote as well, about, I can't remember the exact name of the band, but John Notwhite used to be in a band called, I think it's Rabbit something or other. Like, I speak under correction now. It's Rabbit's Foot or something. I'm going to have a look now. But I mean, you know, like, that guy was one of the coldest dudes ever.
He's one talking about, you know, interesting.
The band name, sorry, was Rabbit's Carrot, and I'm just looking now. It's actually on YouTube, and there's a track on there recorded live, "My Own Leprosy." So it's which sounds very much like a song he would write, but it's, the name of the band certainly doesn't.
He's one of those characters, you know, that really, like you asked like earlier, like what characters kind of stood out to you, and Jon Nødtvedt is one of those that stood out to me from the second I met him. Instantly, he had this aura about him. He came to like a really weird day at the rehearsal room with Satyricon, and Jon Nødtvedt came down the same day. I think it was the same day, but Satyr talked to Quarton of Battery, because we were supposed to try to tickle him to get onto the Nemesis Divina album, but he said no at the last minute. And then Jon Nødtvedt came down into the rehearsal room, because we were going on tour with Dissection. And we just had Darkthrone there, who's been rehearsing like before we were rehearsing. So like one of those days where you kind of meet everyone in one day. But Jon had this thing about them. Swedish people are very nice. They're very kind. They have this aura about them that it's much kinder than like the Norwegian aura. And he has that, but also with a kind of focus that I've only kind of seen in Kvarten and those kind of people. And there was, being on tour with him and everything, the way he was, the antics, the way he just did dissection without kind of like, it just came. It was a part of him. Is very kind of like a occult person, but also the kindest man and kind of friend to have around as well. Was super, super like intelligently, socially with people, and just kind of stood out. Like he would have, if he would have been into jazz or filmmaking or anything, I'm sure he would have done it big in any of those things. He had just had like tremendous fucking focus.
Well, here's a question: how big do you think Dissection would be today if he was still around?
Massive. Massive. At least, or maybe, I don't know, that the whole prison thing just ruined him. But I don't know. I think there would have been just legends, you know.
There are certain people for sure, and I've met a couple as well over the course of doing the podcast and doing the writing for Chronicles of Chaos. It's just a different energy that you get off of them. You can just tell from the start, like this person is destined for, unless they trip themselves up somehow, they are absolutely destined for success. You know, as much as I don't like newer Behemoth, when I first met Nurgle, that was the vibe I got off of him. And it was when I met him, they were touring on Zoskia Cultus, and I was like, there's just something different about this dude. I remember being in the underworld in London, seeing Mastodon play for the first time. Venue was half full. I turned to my friend and I said, this is going to be one of the biggest bands on the planet. I fucking guarantee you that. And within 2 years, they'd sold out Brixton Academy, I think, for 3 nights in succession. There's just certain people you can just get that. You just know when you meet them. It's you can't put a finger on why, but it's just there. It's just something about the way that they carry themselves. It's the way that they, you know, it's the way they project there. It's like the aura they project. You just know something big is on the horizon for these folks.
Yeah, you get that from a lot of, if you meet those superstar kind of people, from Iron Maiden. I met Sting once, Elton John, Willie Nelson. I've been hanging out with him and his crew and having a cigarette. Those kind of people, they go even kind of like one step further than that again. They have this God kind of aura, kind of thing where you just go, ooh, man, there's fucking Willie Nelson. And you can touch it from 10 meters from afar. Or Sting, who's like this tiny little Lego man. And he's got an aura that will beat you up when he walks past you. You know, it's just super intense. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes artists, you know, those really special artists that actually make it and do something special. There's something with the universe and those kind of people.
100%. So Dolgar, when Second Spell was released, what was the response like for it? You know, upon the time, or upon its release.
It was great. I remember that we insisted that Necromantic Gallery was getting the license to do the vinyl version before Cacophonous actually released the CD version. And I remember getting a letter from NGP that they had almost sold out the entire 1,000 copies run on pre-orders and alone. And 1,000 copies isn't, a lot of records when we came from listening to Kiss and W.A.S.P, of course, but
yeah,
to us that was like, wow, okay, so 1,000 vinyl records almost sold out on pre-orders alone. That was really great. And also the amount of requests for interviews that we got in, old-fashioned snail mail back then was also a pointer that this was going to be something that was, much appreciated. And the reviews, to the extent that I, can't say that I read everything, but what I did read was pretty good, all of it. So I'm pretty sure someone hated it out there, but I never heard about that.
So Svartalv, I know that you didn't you were with a band for I would assume the entirety of the touring cycle of Second Spell.
We never toured with Second Spell. We just started to write. We were just continuing the writing process going into Malice, and I stayed with the band. I left the band only like 3 or 5 weeks before they went into the studio to record Malice.
So what made, if you don't mind me asking, what made you decide to leave?
Chaos. Personal things. That was my problems, not with the band at all. There was some feeling like Sarcana touched on earlier, that the Malice stuff felt a little bit more forced. And I felt the kind of wheels of time changing, the music scene changing. And I fucked up a lot. I had a bunch of court cases, and there was drugs and drinking, and it was just an absolute like chaos feeling that I pretty much, it felt like an urgency to get away from that little town and get back to Oslo. I don't know why. And like I told the guys before, it's one of the things I really regret, that I didn't kind of just stick that one out and stick it through. And of course, life would have been very different if I did that, but I don't know. It was just chaos. There was a sense of urgency in everything I did, and some other people around me did too. So I just rushed it. I have no idea why. And as you said, like the response for Second Spell, I didn't really get that until many, many years later, because I just tumbled into Satyricon and then into Nocturnal Breed, and I didn't get the time to read the reviews and talk to people that much about it. And when I sat down in the 2000s and okay, let's see what people actually thought about this album, I was like, okay, wow, this certainly made a little impact, you know.
And if we continue down the train of, you know, what happened later, I mean, I know Sarcana, you were there for the third spell, and then at what point did you exit the band?
I stopped, like, also, you know, also our drummer, Dirk, he left the band, and
did you join Enslaved, correct?
Yeah. He moved, and we got a new location to rehearse, and we got a new drummer, and it was just, I just felt out of place in the band. It was, I didn't get along with the new drummer very well, and that at that time I was feeling a bit fed up, and also I realized when it comes to music, to me it has to be, I don't like it when it starts feeling like work. And we were rehearsing quite intensely. We were like rehearsing 3 times a week for 3 or 4 hours. And I think after a while you kind of, and also the studio, it was so intense. You are like for a month in studio every day, and it's hard work. And I think also like partly music to me was not that fun anymore. Well, it was feeling more like work, and there were different reasons, but for leaving Gehenna. But it was a time where there came new members in, and new rehearsal place, and the riffs were more and more death metal to me, and I was not a death metal person. I feel like death metal is more monotone and more harsh in a way. It's more, I don't know. It has a different vibe than more a darker sounding vocal, and And I've never been like a big fan of death metal, but I mean, I think I left at a time where things were changing in a way. Like there was, things were going in a new direction.
I must admit, I was a very big fan of WW. And I still am, actually. I think it's a absolutely fantastic record. But Dolgar, you carried on with Gehenna, all the way to 2013 when you put out Unravel. What kind of kept you doing it, after these guys had left? Because the band did, to Sarcana's point, it did change quite dramatically over the course of the next decade.
I did have a, let's call it a vacation, if you will, I left when we weren't entirely done with Murder. I have to second Sarcana's opinion that I felt eventually, although she felt that one album before I did, I felt that eventually we went too far in the death metal direction. So I was not very happy with Murder. And then I left, but Gehenna didn't release anything or do much until I rejoined, and we did WW. But to me, Gehenna has been something that I started when I was young, of course, late teens. So it's so close to my heart that, even if I hadn't rejoined or we had, just quit the band entirely, it would still be such a vital part of who I am. So, I mean, you can quit physically, but I think you can't quit mentally when you've been doing this for such a long time. I mean, it's more than half of my life, So and just the dedication, and also Salman keeps coming up with inspiring riffs all the time, man. It's like, dang, I actually want to contribute to what he just played to me there, and that would be a really interesting thing to make a song out of, and yeah, so his riffs also has a way of convincing me to keep on going, because they're really great. So yeah, it's such a big part of me that I can't let it go, even if I try. I think I have tried, and I haven't managed to let it all go.
Now, here's a question: What would it take for the three of you to get back together with Sunrob and do, even if it's just shows playing first spell and second spell material only? Because I could see that absolutely killing at Inferno or at Fortress here in the UK. Is that something that you have ever or would ever consider? And that's kind of a question for all three of you.
Can I go first? I think at least for my part, I would be the most unconvincing liar ever if I told anyone that I have not thought about it. But there are, geographical things to overcome. That's one thing. And also the fact that, we have jobs and all that stuff, so we can't just, leave everything that we're holding in our hands and jump on the next plane and hook up in the rehearsal room on short notice, the way we could have done if we were still, 21 years old and didn't have all the commitments that we have. I agree. I think it would have sounded really incredible, and it would be probably the only way to actually do 100% justice to the songs that we did actually record together. You can put, two of us and three other guys together, and it would maybe sound close, but it wouldn't sound the same without actually having the original people doing the performance. But if it will happen or not is anyone's guess, I think.
Sarcana, what would it take for you to, if Jan Martin Jensen made the call and said we would love to have you guys at Inferno 2025, what would it take for you to get on board with that idea?
Oh, well,
I feel like I'm negotiating on his behalf now.
It doesn't sound like you are.
How much money? Well, to me, it will take a lot of I guess, work, because it's kind of like going back and figuring out stuff, and like I have a piano now, electric piano. I don't have like the keyboard like I used to, because I need to have something good to play on.
I'll take care of that. You don't need to worry
so
about that.
I have to buy an instrument. I have to and what I noticed when I listened to some of the songs on Second Spell is kind of how I was kind of changing the sound effects for each riff. It's kind of, and playing that live, I was splitting my keyboard, and I had two keyboards, but one of them broke on the tour, so I ended up just with one keyboard, which I split up in different sections, so I could quickly change sounds, and not always. It wasn't always enough. Sometimes you had to change them manually, but it was a kind of a technical work, very technical, being a keyboardist playing live in Gehenna, because you kind of fiddled around with all the different sounds. So yeah, it will take a lot of work, at least, and time, and and I realized what to me it's not about fame. To me, it's about playing music and the relationship I had with the guys. As I told you, I left the band because of conflict. I cannot play with people I don't like. So, but now they live many kilometers. We live far apart from each other, and I don't know if I could manage it, because it's something about playing together and being in the same room. I cannot sit at home and practice alone like that. It has to make sense on a higher level. I don't know. Otherwise, it will feel like a job, and I don't like jobs. Doing music and where it feels like a job. That makes sense. Yeah.
Svartalv?
I'll be in if she's in. I'm in. No, I think like Dolgar said, like we need to be all of us to do that thing, and it needs to be in a good feeling between all of us, and that we, like Sarcana said, it's not a job, it's something we do because we want to present this the way we really dreamt about it 30 years ago, to really present it. And for me, the distance is survivable. It takes me 9 hours to drive over there, so I can do that. So yeah, I want it to be a comfortable thing, and not to use one of those stupid words, but a fun thing for everyone. And I'm open to it. I've been open to it. I've been thinking about this a million times. It's one of those things that people continuously poke me in the ribs with, I've been doing it for 30 years. When are you going to go back to them? When are you going to do this? When is Gehenna coming back? When are you going to do the first, seconds, blah, 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 blah. So I know we can do it. I know people would love it. I know we can make it look really good, sound really good. And it's just the logistics, The five of us are the same people as we were. We're a little bit more controlled, I think. But we are the same people, so I think the chemistry would work out, I don't know how to put it. I'm up for it. I need a half a year more to get in shape, because if I'm going to do that, I want to do it like I did it back then. And not to jump around like, I'm a young David Lee Roth kind of thing, but I want to be in shape. I want to deliver. I want to be able to deliver those two and a bunch of extra songs, smack in your face, like I did when, if people have seen me play with Satyricon, there was a lot of fucking rage and energy going on. I want to do it like that, and do it because I love it. And I think we can do that. We just need to work out the quirks, and people need to want to do it. if anyone sees this as a hassle, it would just cast a little sand in the whole engine. So I don't know. We just have to talk about it, I guess. I don't know. We haven't. I'm gonna have a talk with Sandra after this. Actually, I've been waiting to have this interview, and I'm gonna talk to him in a couple of days, and I'm gonna talk to Sarcana a little bit, and we're gonna see what people feel. I don't know.
I'm going to be in Oslo next year for Inferno, so I expect to see you guys on the bill.
It would be really cool, you know. But if one should do a thing like that with Gehenna, we should. I don't think we should play like, oh, we're gonna do 500 little pub gigs. No. We want to do Beyond the Gates, Inferno, a couple of places where we can talk to the people and say, okay, we want to present this like this. And this, just like Enslaved and Dimmu and Emperor and all those bands had done, for example, in At the Gates or Beyond the Gates festival kind of thing. It should be presented really well, not just like a fucking punk thing with an amp and a chord in and you just fall around. You know, people deserve after 30 years to get this and go out of there going, there's that feeling, you know.
Well, folks, thank you so much for your time. That was an absolute pleasure. And like I said, I'm going to be in Oslo next year, so I expect to see you on the Inferno bill. But you know, hopefully at some point down the road we bump into each other again. I know for sure Svartalv is going to be back on the podcast. So, either of you Dolgar or you Sarcana, you're always welcome to come on the show as well. But I really, really enjoyed that, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, cool.
Well, after spending probably 15 minutes plus digging through every last bit of minutia about this particular song, there was no way that I was not going to cap off that fantastic conversation with an equally fantastic song. That, of course, was The Shivering Voice of the Ghost by Gehenna off their first proper release, the First Spell EP, due for reissue very soon, as I said. The details of that have not been made available yet, but I'm sure that when it does, we'll talk about it on the podcast, and who knows, I might have those three back on the show again at some point. But I do want to say thank you very much to them for their time. Svartalv was the dude that set all of this up, and, I will state once again publicly, I think of every single person I've met doing Into the Necrosphere, Svartalv is certainly up there with one of my very favorites. A guy that I just hit it off with immediately and consider a very, very close and dear friend. Great to be able to catch up with him, but also great to be able to meet and properly have a conversation with Dolgar and Sarcana. Sarcana, by the way, does a project that's it's up on SoundCloud. She calls it Madame Butterfly, and I would say it's sort of the intersection between Heilung, Chelsea Wolf, and something that sounds quite cinematic. So very much non-black metal, but definitely something to check out. If you think that that's your tipple, I'll post a link to it in the description to the show. Go and give it a listen. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There will be no new reviews or review roundup or anything like that this week. I'll do another one of those next week. I can tell you, unsurprisingly, that the Schizophrenia re-recording that the Cavalera brothers have just put out is a absolute masterpiece. If it is not part of your regular rotation yet, make sure you change that. But, since we were listening to some old school Norwegian black metal, I figured why not contrast it with some new school Norwegian black metal. And I recently discovered a band on black metal promotion called Ir. They have got a EP out called Manalist, and I'm going to play you one of my favorite tracks off of that EP. The opening tune, it's called Doet Ocht Begravet. The song is Dood och Begravet, the band out of Norway called Ir, that is spelt YR if you want to look them up. Their brand new EP, Mana List, is available right now on Black Metal Promotion. And between these guys, Ekrom, and a bunch of the other newer Norwegian bands, it is proof that whilst the second wave of Norwegian black metal is behind us, the fires of darkness, of musical darkness, still burn very brightly in that great country. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll post a link to their Bandcamp in the description to the podcast as well. So as per normal, you know what to do if you head over there and you buy yourself some music. Before we go any further with the show, folks, I've got something I need to get off my chest. If there is one thing I cannot stand, it's when people use the phrase, Vegas, baby. If you're one of those people, you are probably not a member of the Legion, and most importantly, it's time for you to hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
Alright friends, the first headline, Dark Tranquillity have revealed a new single. It's called Not Nothing. It says here, Not Nothing, the third advanced single from Dark Tranquillity's highly anticipated upcoming full-length offering, End Time Signals, as surfaced online. The new record drops on August the 16th via Century Media Records. Let's listen. I have basically for most of their career been relatively indifferent towards Dark Tranquillity, purely because melodic death metal is really not my tempo. But there's a fair few things to like about what we've just heard there so far. That opening singing intro, not quite my thing, but when the song actually kicks in, that main riff is pretty good. And I like the production very much too. You know, really impactful. I think the riff actually sounds pretty nasty. Certainly more nasty than the average Dark Tranquillity riff, or certainly the average Dark Tranquillity riff that I remember. And you have to hand it to these guys. They have been around since 1991. This is, I think, their 13th album. They certainly have a lot of staying power, if nothing else. As a side note as well, I was just thinking about it whilst we were listening to that song. Century Media Records are having themselves a banner year in 2024 as well. You know, I've spoken about $20 Spin, Deborah Morty putting out really good stuff. But, Century Media, just off the top of my head, have this year put out Necrophobic, Inophelion, Vitriol. I'm trying to think who else. They're going to be putting out Body Count. So big year for them. And it's nice to see them rise back to prominence, because for a period of time after Sony bought them back in 2015, I kind of felt it felt to me like they fell by the wayside a little bit. Nowadays, putting out a reasonable amount of good new bands, and nice mix of their more tenured roster bands. But as far as Not Nothing is concerned, it's dynamic, it's definitely not something that I'm going to object to somebody putting on in the background. It won't be a contender for one of my favorite albums of the year, but I definitely don't hate it.
Still lost in time, so far beside ourselves. Our truth was ever, it's not a single path to what is hollow, to what is now left, where we see another way.
Yeah, they almost lose me with that clean singing, because partly it's not that I have hatred for the clean voice. That is just a little the way that the clean singing is being done here. It's just a little bit too polished for me. It feels a bit too poppy. I like clean vocals that either have are very sort of distinct and have their own character. Josh Homme, Mike Patton come to mind. Or it needs to be a little gruffer, like a Mark Lanigan style voice. Not that Mark Lanigan is going to work on a Dark Tranquility song, but that style of clean singing that Michael Stanner is doing here just doesn't quite do it for me. But again, as I said, I was never, I think the main, or I'm certainly not, and others of my ilk, others cut from the same cloth as me, definitely probably don't fall into Dark Tranquility's target audience. Okay, next up, Fulci have put out, or have announced that they're putting out their new full-length in August. It says here, after the recent signing with $20 spin, brutal death metal machine Fulci now announced the release of their 4th studio record, ready to land in stores on August the 9th. It's entitled Duck Face Killings, engineered and mixed by Ando Ferralio and mastered by Arthur Risk. For a preview, give a taste to The Rotten Apple as the album's first single. Meh. It's all right. Nice production. If I'd heard this 15 years ago, I would have enjoyed it a lot more than I enjoy it right now. I just feel like death metal is on such a high creatively right now that this sort of thing just doesn't quite cut the mustard for me. I'm actually surprised that $20 Spin signed this. Because it doesn't feel to me like the sort of band that they would typically put on their roster. Most of their death metal bands, have just something a little bit more distinct to them. This just feels like, a standard underground, gore death metal band that, will have its audience, but the audience always be, small, very select. And I've also mentioned this before. I find the gore lyrics to be not just trite, but I think since I became a father, I don't find them funny anymore either. There used to be a time where I could where I could listen to a gore band and you could see the lyrics and, I thought it was hysterical. Nowadays, I don't even find it funny anymore. I just find it fucking stupid. Truly great gory lyrics to me are like lyrics off the new Brodquin record. Because there's a reality to it, there's a grit to it. And again, I think when it comes to brutal death metal, Brodquin has been one of the bands that has set a bar for other releases in 2024 that very, very few are going to touch. But anyway, let's move on. I was talking actually about great releases on Century Media. There's another great release for you, Skeletal Remains. And it says here, Skeletal Remains are going to be touring North America with Bewitcher. I think they're on Century Media as well. They will be joined by Phobophilic, Torture Rack, Witch Vomit, and Morgul Blade. So if you're in North America, make sure that you catch one of those dates. I fucking love that Skeletal Remains album. Really, really good. I still cannot believe that that Chris from Skeletal Remains, was so. I'm trying to find the right word, but steadfast is the one that that springs to mind about not wanting to be a frontman. He's got such great vocals, and you really hear them on Fragments of the Ageless. All right. Brothers in Metal present Heavy Metal Viking single. I almost have to listen to this out of pure morbid curiosity. As part of their newly announced and detailed third full-length Fimbul Winter, due on November the 1st through AFM Records, the Swedish Brothers of Metal premiere the first single called Heavy Metal Viking. The new outing was produced, mixed and mastered by Eric Berglund. They're certainly getting that PR cycle started off early, so AFM must truly believe in the power of this record. Let's hear what it sounds like. This is fucking atrocious. Although I will give them this. I think that opening riff is pretty cool, but the actual song, oh my god. I am a god, better believe that, or I'll tear you apart. Jesus Christ, who the fuck wrote their lyrics for them? Again, though, as I said, clearly AFM Records, they believe in the project. If you look at I've skipped past it, because those of you listening on Spotify and Apple aren't going to want to hear the ambient noise of a bunch of LARPers, pretending to be Vikings out in the fucking forest. But the production values, certainly in the opening portion of the music video, actually not too bad. I mean, they clearly spent a little bit of money on it. But it's kind of the same thing as I asked about a band whose name actually I listened to last week. It escapes me who the band was. But I posed this question last week. Who in 2024 is actually still listening to that? Back in the day, that style of music was something that I would always think of, 40 and 50-something year olds listening to, because that's closer to the music that they grew up with than maybe the extreme stuff that I was into. But I'm 44 now. Most of the people that were, that would listen to that sort of shit probably dead. Anyway, Modern Rites are releasing a new album in August called Endless, following their 2021 debut record Monuments. Following their 2021 debut record Monuments, black metal duo Modern Rites now proudly disclose the details of the first single of their new one, entitled Endless. It will be released on August the 30th via Deborah Morty Productions. And Johnny Warren shares insights into the creation of Endless. We'll read that right after we've listened to the first 60 seconds or so of this single. Great melody, excellent vocal performance. There's a lot that I like here. There's one problem. I know that the drums are programmed, and I think that when that opening, it's about 15 to 30 seconds. Whoever programmed that shouldn't be allowed near a fucking drum programming app or a drum machine ever again in their lives. That sounds fucking dreadful. I don't understand why, I mean, this is a band that's now on their second record. I know they're not massive, but I mean, surely they should be able to find a real drummer that could play drums for them. Whether or not the drums are programmed on this album, I should say, I don't know for sure. I know that the drums on the previous record on Monuments were programmed, and they, generally speaking, sounded good. It was a good record, but yeah, I would just get a real drummer. You don't need programmed drums. If you're a band on a label like Librum Immorti, speak to some of your label mates. I'm sure one of them will be happy to help out. But anyway, not to pontificate too much. The song so far does sound very good, with the exception of that Pispur opening. Johnny Warren of the band says, while exploring ideas for the album, we knew we wanted richer harmonies and more synth presence. So a lot of ideas started on keyboard first. You can kind of almost hear that in the riffing when the song kicks in properly. The title track started with a piano version where I explored the initial chords and melodies. I then created bass, synth, and programmed the drum parts. Okay, so there we go. Confirmed the drum parts were programmed. So Johnny, stop with the programming. Get yourself a real drummer. Based on the piano progression, that part that's now in the pre-chorus and bridge was actually the intro at first. But we decided to chop up the original structure to create a more grand feeling overall. Compared to the first album, there was a lot more virtual back and forth between Berg and I, so as we had a lot more layers to work with, blah, blah, blah. Finally, we owe a lot of thanks to Simon at Empty Hall Studio, and I do like Simon at Empty Hall Studio and the work he does very much. I particularly like Aversio Humanitatis, his other band, and I will call again, as I have done in episodes past, for Aversio Humanitatis to get their acts together and get a new album written and recorded. The last one they did was phenomenal. Love that melody that kicks into the bit that we've just heard now. Really elevates the song when that's there. And it's a nice contrast to the blast that preceded it. So, yeah, I mean, with the exception of that opening gaff with the drums, to me, that's a very solid thumbs up. So looking forward to hearing what the rest of that record sounds like. Okay, Zeal and Ardor debut a new track. I said at the top of the show that we would be listening to this. Now, up to our present point in time, there have been 2 singles released off of this new forthcoming Zeal and Ardor record, and I still don't know whether it's pronounced Grief or Grief. We're just going to call it Grief. 2 singles have been released. The first one, the furthest thing from metal on the face of the earth, but I really, really liked it. And I liked it because I thought in the context of, an album that kind of follows a particular journey, it would be a great way to finish off, that record. It's the last song on the record also, that kind of fed into that. Second single that was released, I thought was okay. But having revisited that a few times now, it does sound very djenty and actually a little new metal-y to me. And so before, I didn't know that they were putting out a new single, until probably 24 hours ago. But I went back and I listened to the record that came out previously, the self-titled record that came out in 2022, and I gotta say, there's some new metal in there. Like some songs pretty overtly new metal. And I come at Zeal and Ardor from a slightly different perspective. They were a band, you know, where I think they put out their debut back in 2016. And, you know, a lot of the Kerrang and Metal Hammer types were splooging all over their skinny jeans and their fucking Pokemon backpacks about how incredible it was that this band was blending African-American spiritual songs and black metal. Whenever those magazines get excited about something, I almost reflexively ignore it, which I did with Zeal and Ardor. Many of the Legion suggested check out a video of them playing live, and that might change your opinion, which I did, which has made me more positive towards their music, generally speaking. That being said, that last record, there's very little black metal there. There's a ton of new metal. So I just wanted to make that point as we listen to the new single. Zeal and Ardor have launched a Miro, Widmer, and Christian Taro directed video for Fend You Off. It's the newest preview tune from their next full-length installment, Grief, which is due out on August the 23rd. Let's hear what it sounds like.
Thousands of hours we wait to devour what's gone. Hidden in truth is the merit of youth, what is left. I have been clenching my fists so my palms start to bleed. The person who truly reverts him, the Lord, the Lord.
Well, in keeping with what I said before, if anybody ever got into this band because of the black metal influences, they're in for some grief of their own, because there is absolutely nothing about any of the music that I've heard off this forthcoming record that has anything remotely to do with black metal. That song actually sounds to me a lot like radio rock from the late 90s. As a matter of fact, if I were in university and this song came out then, every fucking dickhead at a frat party or driving around in his Toyota Corolla would have been blasting this, no doubt. It's not dreadful, but again, I kind of have gone from being curious about the new record to being completely indifferent about the new record. And you know, again, whenever I'll bet you anything, the new Zeal and Ardor record will be, you know, very high up on best albums ever when it comes to or best albums of 2024 on fucking Louder Sound and Kerrang and all of these shit outlets, which again makes me less inclined to want to check them out. And I do, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say I feel as strongly about gatekeeping as, say, my friend Dale Patterson. But at the same time, you know, I can get why people would just have written the band off altogether, you know, right at the beginning of them coming out. One band that I do find confusing, though, when it comes to gatekeeping and when it comes to calling bands poser bands, is Gehenna. For the most part, I mean, I think they've been quite embraced by the black metal scene, but I had the most bizarre post on Instagram after I posted after I dropped the Gehenna conversation that I recorded at Fortress Festival this last Friday. And the individual writes, you know, we shouldn't be platforming these poser bands. And I was just like, I thought to myself, it's such a bizarre thing to write. Like, not only by using that phrase are you like, you know, we shouldn't be platforming, or do you sound like some blue-haired fucking Antifa idiot who's trying to get somebody cancelled? But the way that you've actually written that post, you've written it like I actually give a fuck about your opinion. And like I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna go, oh my god, you're right. I'm so sorry, sir. I'll go away and I'll delete that episode because you asked for it, because you told me to. Fuck off. Anyway, let's move on. Einherjar have shared a cover of a Motorhead song called Deaf Forever. I keep wanting to say Stone Deaf Forever, literally any time that I see that, but anywho. Einherjar, not even a band I was aware still existed, but I think my one and only encounter with them was way back in 1996 when they put out their debut record. Where I grew up, there was a fucking complete and utter freak of nature named Vainant that used to sometimes order stuff from Johannesburg or from the Nuclear Blast catalog, or all the different outlets where we all got our CDs from, and he would try and palm it off to us. I remember hearing Dragons of the North, which was the first Einherjar record. He tried to sell it to me, and I soon sent him packing. Didn't like it. And I've just never bothered to pay any attention to them since. But that being said, they have now covered Deaf Forever by Motorhead. Motorhead is a band that is infinitely coverable, in my opinion. So let's hear what they've done to the song. Love it. They've added their own flair to it, but all of the great things about that song are still thoroughly intact, particularly that chorus, which is brilliant. So not bad. Like I said, Motorhead is just a band that is, for whatever reason, they're more than any other band, I think. They can just be covered so extremely well. There's a Motorhead tribute record that came out back in 2022, put out by Psycho Wax, and I would strongly recommend that you give it a listen if you haven't done yet. Phenomenal covers on there, including Ace of Spades with Phil Anselmo on vocals. In fact, I believe he trades vocals with Nick Olivieri, formerly of Queens of the Stone Age. Creeping Death do a really cool cover of In the Name of Tragedy. You've also got Exorder doing Sacrifice, which is brilliant. You've got High on Fire absolutely fucking throwing it down with Iron Fist. And then one of my favorite ever Motorhead covers, Midnight doing Dirty Love. I played that a couple of weeks ago. Genius. And a couple of songs that are on that tribute, or a couple of covers that are on that tribute that I would also suggest you check out. Tombs do a really mean cover of Killed by Death. And then, of course, there's these Sepultura and Satyricon covers of Orgasmatron. Two different interpretations. I think the Satyricon one actually sticks a little closer to the original vibe of the song, but I think both are fantastic. Okie doke, let's move on. Wormwitch have launched a new track while waiting for the release of their fourth and self-titled record, due on July the 26th through Profound Roar Records. Canada's Wormwitch offer in listening the closing track, Draconic Sorceress Canadian Witch Nights. Let's hear what this one sounds like. everything about that works. You guys often send me some really great recommendations, and very often I'll get a recommendation from a member of the Legion, and you'll say, this one I think is going to be right up your street. If you want to know what's right up my street, Wormwitch is right up my street. The vocals sound possessed. I love the reverb on the voice, the intensity of the delivery, just fantastic. That riff is fucking nasty. The guitars have a almost kind of crust punk vibe to them, but with a lot of beef, a lot of bottom end. And then the drummer sounds like he spent his time watching Canadian C-SPAN, and after probably 5 to 6 minutes of hearing Justin Trudeau try to form a coherent sentence, he said, guys, hit the record button, I'm going to do these drums. I mean, he sounds like he's assaulting his kit. I don't know whether that is intentional, whether I'm hearing correctly, or whether it was just recorded that way, but yeah, that is fucking excellent. These kinds of breakdowns for this style of music, I wouldn't even just call them a breakdown anymore. I'm going to coin a new phrase. It's the apocalypse breakdown. And I think it reminds me a little bit of the way the tempo change in the song Battles in the North. As a matter of fact, I think you could probably make, or we will collectively make we'll create the new theory that it was Immortal that created the apocalypse breakdown, because it sounds like the fucking world is coming to an end. It's so badass when a band does it. But yeah, this absolutely it will be issued with a top-notch accolade without a shadow of a doubt. That is fucking brilliant. I have no idea how this band isn't bigger than they are. They have put out this will be their 4th record, yeah, as it says there. I'll need to dig back into the older stuff, but fuck me, based on what I've heard, yeah, this is going to be a top 30 contender without a doubt. Okay, Crossbreed have premiered a new song called The Killer Inside. If ever there is a theme that is as overdone, overused, overplayed as, I am the blank trope that I've complained about on the news rant before, The Killer Inside must certainly be up there as well. Just one of those things that anybody in a band, I don't give a shit whether you're playing new metal, death metal, black metal. If you're actually playing music of any kind, don't ever use that fucking phrase again. Also, Crossbreed is garbage. So I could attempt to listen to that, but I think we know how that would go. So Orange Goblin have dropped a new track, streaming everywhere now for your listening pleasure, it says. Orange Goblin's new single, The Fire at the Center of the Earth Is Mine, is the 3rd preview tune to be released from the upcoming Science Not Fiction album, coming July the 19th via Peaceful Records. Now that's the name. That is a name of, a cool name for a song. The Fire at the Center of the Earth Is Mine. That sounds fucking badass. And that previous Orange Goblin single, that put me on my heels a little bit. This is another band that I'd written off. I mentioned when I listened to that first single, some of that stemmed from the fact that most of my exposure to them had come from seeing them open for bands that I was very excited about watching. And generally speaking, any band that's going to open for somebody, if you don't know that band, they're going to get a bit of a hard time. So they were never a band I was usually into, but that last single was great. Let's hear what this one sounds like. Yeah, very cool. Nice big chorus. I like the way that the song builds up to it. I think the vocal performance is great. You know what this reminds me of? The sadly now shut Crowbar, a legendary spot in central London, where really in the glory days of the London Astoria and of the Mean Fiddler, anybody who's anybody could be seen hanging out there after a show. When Boris Imbecile Johnson and Sadiq Moron Khan ripped the guts out of that once great city, and they took away the Astoria and they took away the Mean Fiddler, the Crowbar unfortunately went with it. I spent many a night there drinking several cans of Red Stripe, and this is normally the kind of music that they would have playing there. So it always reminds me of that. Also reminds me of barbecue. And I'm going to be doing some barbecuing of my own later on today. I'm actually going to, by the request of a couple of members of the Legion, I've got Cheyenne coming to visit me at some point in July. And promised him, obviously, I'll grill some steak. I might get Paige to film that. We'll definitely do a podcast episode when he's here, but I might get Paige to film the steak. I'll share some of my secrets with you guys. But yeah, thumbs up. I think that this new Orange Goblin album, if it surprised me the way that it has, if you're an Orange Goblin fan, I mean, you're probably fucking giddy with excitement. Coldbrann are premiering a brand new single. It's called I Unaterens Void, or Vault. Yeah, I Unaterens Vault. Let's say that and stick with it. The latter is part of the band's forthcoming studio album Ingen Skonselbum, which comes out on August the 23rd, 2024. Let us hear what this one sounds like. Pretty much what I expected. Definitely very Norwegian in at least songwriting style, riff style. That melody certainly, has a Nordic flavor to it. The performances are all good. I would say Leonid Melnikov, the drummer, who's also the drummer in a band called Flesh Meadow, which I really like, and again, I'm very surprised is unsigned, and very surprised hasn't gone on to do bigger things. He's a very capable drummer. I kind of feel like he's holding back a little bit on this song, and I don't know whether that was by direction from somebody else in the band or from a producer, but it would be nice to hear a bit more variation in what he's doing, but what he's doing services the song well. By the way, the song, I didn't mean to sound like a buffoon when I said the name, but the album is called Ingen Skonsel. I made the mistake by calling it Ingen Skonselbum because fucking Metal Storm don't check their or don't double check their copy before they post a note like this. Anyway, let's move on and listen to the new Trelldom, which is something I've been really excited about. Norwegian's Trelldom, founded by the iconic vocalist Gol, present Between the World as the first single from their upcoming new album By the Shadows. The release date of that is September the 13th, 2024, and a couple of weeks ago we spoke about the fact that that's going to be out on Prophecy Productions. I have been massively excited about hearing this, so without further ado... So the song is nearly 7 minutes long. I'm going to jump to the halfway mark in a second to hear whether or not we've, things have changed. But my initial impression, I'm very surprised that this is a first single off a Trelldom album. Had this been the first single off a Galsverd album, I would have absolutely have gotten it. It sounds very much like Galsverd, but as somebody who is a big fan of Till Mire, the last Trelldom record that they put out back in 2007, I was kind of hoping to have some face melting black metal. And I know Gal hasn't done his screaming vocals for a while now. He certainly hasn't done them on any of the Galsverd records. But one of the great black metal vocalists of all time, in my opinion. I just kind of miss hearing those, hearing those screams. It would have been nice to have a song that combines maybe nasty ass riffing with some Gal level, evil shrieking, and we're not getting it. Yeah, it's got good atmosphere. It's not a bad song. Is it a song that's going to... I'm sure he doesn't give a shit, but is it a song that's going to attract people to listen to Trelldom that maybe haven't paid attention to them before? I'm not sure about that. Anyway, let's jump to the 3 minute and 45 second mark, and let's hear where the song takes us. So that part sounds great, really haunting, really atmospheric, but it sounds like Galsverd. It certainly doesn't sound like, By My Will, From This Past, or anything like that. So, I will absolutely be one of the first people to listen to this, whether or not it gets sent to me by prophecy before the release date, or whether it is something that I wake up to on release day and listen to. But I'm a bit cautious about it. I'm not sure that it's going to be a record that necessarily manages to stick out above the rest of a very, very crowded lineup this year. All right, we'll wrap up the news rant by amusing ourselves for a few minutes on blabbermouth.net. Ghost have surprised released a new song. So we're going to find out, in other words, whether or not their rapid descent into... I would actually say something far worse than mediocrity continues at pace. I mean, this was a band where at first I didn't get them. Then I paid some proper attention to the first 2 records, enjoyed them, thought, actually, I think I saw them live. They opened for Metallica. Thought that wasn't bad either. But that last album that they put out was absolutely unlistenable, and I have my misgivings over what any new material, future material, might end up sounding like. It says here, Ghost has released a new song called The Future is a Foreign Land. The Swedish band took to social media to reveal the newly uncovered 1969-era track, which is featured on the soundtrack to Ghost's debut film, Right Here, Right Now. According to Ghost, The Future is a Foreign Land was penned by the fictional character Papa Nihil, who also wrote, or previously wrote Ghost songs Mary on a Cross and Kiss the Go-Goat. Anyway, I think Kiss the Go-Goat may have been the song that possibly nailed the coffin as far as my thoughts on Ghost almost entirely shut, but let us hear what this new track sounds like and see whether or not they've been able to redeem themselves.
I know it feels remote, but picture it somehow.
There's definitely no redemption forthcoming for Ghost. That is absolutely atrocious. I mean, you know, words fail to properly describe how much I dislike that song. So 47 seconds is about all I can take. Let's move on. From one annoyance to another, Tom Morello says his Soldier in the Army of Love single is probably the heaviest song he's released in some time. I saw a clip of that someone had recorded at the Download Festival of the past, I think it's 2 weekends ago. It sounded about as dreadful as you can imagine. And Download Festival, by all accounts, seemed to have been rather dreadful as well. I think a few hundred people got food poisoning. I don't know whether that was due to one of the food trucks potentially having contaminated ingredients, or whether it was just the usual mixture of sewage and mud that is a commonplace at any British UK outside festival. But either way, reading the way that people described it, it sounds like hell on earth to me. I hate camping. I hate outdoor festivals. I just don't want to go to any of them ever. It's fine to see videos of it happening. That's about as close to it as I want to be. Give me something like Inferno, or give me something to Fortress where I can fuck off after I've watched what I want to watch and go, you know, live in comfort or sleep in comfort and shower in comfort at a hotel. Fear Factory's Dino Cazares on the advancement of AI. I hope I'm alive long enough to see androids alongside us. That's a fucking incredibly stupid thing to say, I think. Devolution featuring Fear Factory, ex-Fear Factory threat signal members. Devolution featuring ex-Fear Factory and Threat Signal members. New single Victim of You available. Much like with Ghost, I suspect this may not be the best, but let's hear what it sounds like anyway. Devolution, the band featuring bassist Christian Older Wolbers of Fear Factory and Violence, vocalist John Howard of Threat Signal, drummer Eric Tazor, and Nate Beberdick has released a new single called Victim of You. The track features a guest appearance by former El Nino and current Lions at the Gate frontman Christian Machado, and is taken from Devolution's debut album Deceiver Believer, due on June the 28th. El Nino isn't great, so really nothing is boding positively for this so far, but we'll give it its 60 seconds. Well, I said 60 seconds, but I lied. That is fucking complete garbage. What is interesting, though, it says here, Metallica devotee Nate financed Devolution's independent debut full-length by selling his Metallica collection to fund the project. Though he's been a lifelong Metallica collector, he views it as a worthwhile sacrifice of music fueling music, and still has the power to push forward with the love of his favorite band, even with a lighter collection on his hands. Dude, you made a big mistake. Down returns to the live stage for the first time in nearly 2 years. I wonder when Down are going to put out the acoustic album that they teased us with years ago. I remember that being possibly on the cards even before Down 3 was released, and I love that track on Down 2, Where I'm Going, so much. I would love an entire record of just music like that. You know, with Phil, with Kirk, with Pepper, and with everybody, you know, just sat around a house, cracking open a couple of beers, having a little smoke, and you know, recording something like that, 12 tracks. That would be fucking awesome. And that was always the impression I had when they spoke about the acoustic album. I always thought, well, that's what it will end up sounding like. But yeah, no such luck so far. James Hetfield says Metallica's collaboration with Fortnite makes sense. It's a really cool idea. I hate Fortnite. I don't understand why Metallica have to say yes to every single merchandising opportunity coming their way. It's not like they're short of money. But anyway, much as I hate Fortnite, I'm a big fan of Elden Ring, and I saw Shadow of the Erdtree has come out this weekend. Not sure I'm quite ready to dive into it just yet, because my understanding is you need to have a pretty formidable character coming from the base game in order to have stand any chance of surviving in the new one. So I might need to reattempt finishing it, because I haven't done that yet, and then see where Shadow of the Erdtree, whether or not I can invest the time in that. David Ellefson says it was illegal for metal fans to admit to liking Nirvana in the early 1990s. I remember being a young blood, and I had some friends who soon became former friends at school that were so obsessed with Metallica that even when I was starting to listen to stuff like Pantera and Sepultura and Slayer, like they got personally offended by it. And I kind of feel like that was an attitude, broadly speaking, in some metal scenes in the 90s that is thankfully mostly gone now. There's no more kind of division between the scenes. If you listen to black metal, you can be into death metal and vice versa. If you're into thrash, you can be into hardcore. We can listen to whatever we want. My personal view has always been I will listen to whatever I want, regardless. Breaking away from those fucking dorks when I was in school led me on to a dude who I know listens to the podcast. I'll give him a bit of a shout out. His name is Alec. He and I met each other at a metal social that was held at a school dance hall where I DJ'd, and we soon became fast friends. And he was the sort of dude I could get on with. He's 4 or 5 years older than me, but we shared more aligned views on music, and I think we shared more open-mindedness when it came to music. But the point I'm making is, if ever you had any friends that were like that, or, maybe you find you still have friends that are like that, tell them to fucking get to stepping. Metallica's Master of Puppets has been crowned the best metal album of all time by Germany's Metal Hammer magazine. I'm curious to see whether or not they have the shortlist here, because it's a fantastic record, and I think if you want to think about it in terms of influence and in terms of a record that has crossover appeal, has influenced many bands, then maybe they probably have a fair point about it. I'm not going to read the whole article, but it says here Metallica appears 5 times on the Metal Hammer list of the 500 best metal albums. Other heavy metal pioneers such as Motorhead, AC/DC, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Manowar, and Slayer are also present, alongside modern acts like Slipknot, Tool, Nightwish, Ghost, In Flames, and Sleep Token. I think the fact that they would include Slipknot, Nightwish, Ghost, and Sleep Token instantly renders that list moot. Much as they may have arrived at possibly, arguably the correct, end result, Slipknot is fucking total shite. Nightwish, complete nonsense. Ghost, we've assessed, had 2 good albums and then, descended into a complete disgrace, complete farce. And Sleep Token, I mean, fuck's sake. If I'll tell you what, if that, I'll need to go through the list. Maybe we'll go through the list on a future news rant. But if that didn't feature the at least 5 Nevermore records, then we immediately know it's absolute nonsense, should be ignored, nay, possibly even boycotted. Okay, let's try and check out one more song as we close off this news rant. And there must be something. But then again, we are on Blabbermouth. Metallica shares King Nothing Pro shot video from the Helsinki stop of their M72 tour. I like King Nothing. And I think it's probably, again, I've mentioned this before, I think Load was the last good, not necessarily great, but the last good album that Metallica ever put out. There are some very, very cool songs on that record, and I think that it stood the test of time, probably a lot more so than anything that came after it, including, the fucking complete joke that was Death Magnetic. As soon as I heard the lyric on Death Magnetic, "What don't kill you make you more strong," I was out. I was instantly out. Okay, we'll finish off with this one. Max and Igor Cavalera perform early Sepultura classics in Dublin during the 2024 Third World Trilogy Tour. Fan-filmed video of Cavalera, the band featuring former Sepultura members Max and Igor Cavalera, performing on June the 13th at the Academy in Dublin, Ireland, can be seen below. The set list was as follows. 1. Bestial Devastation, Antichrist, Necromancer, Warriors of Death, Sextaferia 13, Morbid Visions, Mayhem, Crucifixion, Funeral Rites, Empire of the Damned, Escape to the Void, Refuse, Resist, and Troops of Doom. That is a hell of a fucking set list. Yeah, seems like there's some reasonable quality video. So let's check out one of them. This is Escape to the Void. All right, let's skip ahead by 2 minutes so we can get to where the action is. Fuck it, I would have loved to have been there. That sounds fucking awesome. Only one question I've got is, anybody watching the video may have a view of their own. Yeah, is Max? Does he have back problems? Has he got some sort of health issue? Because, excuse me, he seems quite immobile on stage. You know, like I know the guy's knocking on the door of turning 60 soon, but you know, he seems very rigid, like he's not moving around an awful lot. You know, I know comparing him to Tom Araya, who I know had neck problems and back problems, he kind of has that sort of vibe about him, that kind of energy about him. His voice still sounds great though, and Igor, I mean, you know, what a fucking incredible drummer. Many times I've mentioned this, but he's one of those dudes where if he plays live with a band, that band automatically sounds better because he's in the band. That is also the case with the great Johnny Kelly. I've seen Johnny Kelly play with Danzig a couple of times. I've seen other drummers play with Danzig, and when Johnny's behind the kit, watch out. But yeah, that sounds awesome. And you know, really, I think that these Cavalera re-recordings, they've just been such a revelation. You know, it kind of shows that, you know, the fire never quite left these guys. They were out in the wilderness, you know, making music that, let's be honest, much of Max's output with Soulfly not been my cup of tea. Quite a lot of the Cavalera conspiracy stuff I didn't enjoy so much either, but for whatever reason, somehow they tapped into an energy with these re-recordings of Morbid Visions, Bestial Devastation, and Schizophrenia that is just pure magic. And I am going to say it again. I know that to some this is going to sound like total heresy, but I'm open to the idea of them redoing Beneath the Remains now. They've done such a great job with these new re-recordings. I actually think they can make Beneath the Remains sound fucking excellent too. And on that bombshell, my friends, the news rant is wrapped up for this week. That officially puts episode 231 in the books. Hope you guys enjoyed it. A big thank you to Sarcana, Dolgar, and Svartalv for their time. And I will share more details on the reissues of the first and second spell records once I know more. Hopefully they will be back on the show at some point again as well. Svartalv and I have already said that when we are next together in Norway, we're setting aside 3 to 4 hours and we are going to record a episode so beastly. It's going to be the episode to end all episodes. And then hopefully I planted enough of a seed to get that reunion idea, fully mulched in their minds, and I get to see them play next year as well. We'll, I'll keep on hinting every time that I chat to them. Next week, of course, I'm back. I'm going to be talking to Spellgoth of Horna and Nightshade Rapus. Like I said at the top of the show, somebody who's carries with him a degree of notoriety, but I personally thought he was a great guy. And I will just say right now, in case anybody thinks or perhaps even worries that we're talking about anything political, none of that. I think that's partly why it was such a surprising conversation. This was a very much conversation about him as a person. We spoke a lot about his past, about growing up with his brother and making music together. They're of course together in Horna, and they actually play together in Nightshade Rapus as well. So it's very much about the man behind the myth, and I'm very, very excited about sharing it with you, as well as sharing some future episodes with you. In about 3 minutes time, I need to jump on StreamYard and record a conversation with Jamie Bailey of Brodquin. Next week, I'm actually recording an episode with Sebastian Rumstead of Inophelion and Necrophobic, and then we're in the process of getting a couple of others set up as well. So Dark Funeral, Wormwitch, and there's a band that Pedro from A&P Reacts, as well as Nick Huber sent to me, Nighthammer. And literally, I listened to it for about 60 seconds and was immediately sold. So they're going to come on the podcast at some point as well. But I just want to say once again, thank you very much to all of you for your support. Whatever it is that you are doing, wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week. There is no band I could have closed this episode off with other than the one that you're about to hear right now. So from the album The Headless Children, this is the song The Headless Children, and the band, of course, is W.A.S.P.